Interrupt your programming again to bring you a live look at the demonstrations and protests that continue right now in downtown Charleston. We go live to News 2 reporter Raymond Owens, who is in downtown. Let's take a look. Raymond?
Yes, Taylor, this has escalated to an incredible level. I've never seen anything like this in downtown Charleston myself. We're going to walk over here a little closer. I'm here at Calhoun and King Street. Law enforcement just chased several guys down the road here. There's a helicopter hovering above where we're at right now. You can see a lot of activity happening. My photog, David, was just trying to shoot video here a minute ago. Some protesters grabbed the camera, tried to throw it on the ground. It's a very, very tense situation. You can see gas of some sort in the air behind me. Law enforcement has this entire area shut down. I'm seeing police officers right here behind me running down the street. There was a couple of different, you see some police cars now driving down here as well. There were a couple of different people that tried to run down the street here and law enforcement chased them. You can see this is an extremely, extremely tense situation. Definitely not a safe situation. You can actually see why they are calling for an 11 p.m. curfew. Now, just to give you an idea, a number of protesters were walking down King Street, kind of from the market area, and headed this way and kind of continued down King Street right now. And we're going to walk over here a little bit, see what else we can show you from where we're at here right now. It's unbelievable. I see something being thrown down the street. There's actually a couple of things being thrown down at the officers, or at least coming down King Street toward Calhoun. That's Marion Square right over here, just to give you an idea of where we're at right now. If you're not familiar, this is a very, very active, very, very tense situation in downtown Charleston. Like I said, I've never seen anything like this here in the Charleston area. And you can see police with riot gear lining up here at King Street. You can see police with riot gear lining up right here on King Street. We're at Calhoun. This is where the protesters just came from. You can see a number. Let's look over here, up King Street here. You can see protesters kind of walking back this direction. They're throwing things. It looks like I see an officer. They're throwing things at a police officer right now. And you can see up here in the air, we have the helicopter basically hovering in this area. You know, the police chief told us a few minutes ago that crimes were happening downtown, and that's clearly still happening as we stand here right now live. And you can see, a large group of law enforcement right here in riot gear, basically blocking off King Street at this point. It's very, very, very tense. Like I said, I don't know how else to describe it other than this is a very serious incident. It looks like something is, somebody's throwing a smoke bomb or something over here. It just looks like something you might get at a fireworks stand that is smoking. And you see people are throwing things. I see some things being thrown into the crowd over here of police officers, law enforcement there. And you can see a lot of smoke over here. They're throwing drinks. It's just a lot of stuff happening out here. It is very, very intense. And you can see the crowds are over here. This is toward Marion Square. And they're not at all interested in peace at this point. Oh, here's a police car driving down the road now, and things are being thrown at it as it comes down King Street. Look out, we got people are throwing stuff. Here we go, a bunch of them running this way now. They're running down King Street. Something must have just happened over here. And we see we've got something that looked like it was just thrown from the police, from the law enforcement side. This must be a smoke canister of some sort. It's definitely putting in a large amount of smoke, and law enforcement seems to be trying to kind of take back, if you will, King Street. This is really incredible to see this and to realize this is happening in Charleston, South Carolina. I've grown up here. This is not something that I've ever seen. And like I said, it's a very, very tense situation. I had a couple just now driving up, and they asked what's going on, and I suggested that they need to, find somewhere else to stay if they have to stay right here tonight. That's just my suggestion. But it's a lot of activity happening here downtown. We're going to continue to keep you updated on everything happening here in downtown. Live in downtown Charleston, I'm Raymond Owens. Back to you.
We're down here in Charleston. We're on the corner of Meeting and Calhoun Street, So Marion Square is just off to my right. You guys just heard from Raymond Owens. He's on the other side of Marion Square. If you take a look, there's a heavy police presence right over my shoulder. You can see they basically have this corner blocked off, with the exception if you're coming down Meeting, you can turn on to Calhoun going away from Marion Square. There's a helicopter in the sky. You know, you heard that from Raymond. We're not seeing as much action on this side of the street. There are some flares here in the road. Again, cops are basically have this corner blocked off as you're going to get a look, but really there's not a whole lot going on in this corner. Not a lot of people here, just cops really blocking this off. Again, there's flares in the road. Traffic is pretty much stopped in this section. Again, we're on the corner of Meeting and Calhoun Street, so the opposite side of Marion Square, where you just saw our News 2's Raymond Owens reporting. But again, it's just nothing, like Raymond said, there's no way to really describe what we're seeing. Basically, people are just kind of walking around down here right now. Again, like I said, cops are lining the street. People are just kind of walking. A lot of people are coming our direction. So from Marion Square up Calhoun towards Meeting, a lot of people seem to be coming this way towards us right now. But again, there's just some flares in the road. We haven't seen any tear gas or anything of that nature on our end of things right now. Again, there's a helicopter in the sky. Right now, it doesn't seem like there's any sense of panic or fear right now. Things are a little tense. There are people walking by. A lot of people are just coming away from Marion Square, but right now things are still kind of calm on this on the corner of Meeting and Calhoun. So again, we're going to be down here with downtown Charleston, bringing you guys live reports through the evening. News 2's Riley Benson.
Thank you so much, Riley. Of course, what you just saw there, we have crews right now on both sides of Marion Square at King and Calhoun, as well as Calhoun and Meeting Street. As you can see, the protest that started there earlier today, like we showed you, took a big contrast from earlier. So earlier we had protests that were mostly peaceful, where hundreds gathered in solidarity with the death of George Floyd. Those have now taken a turn. Police are asking you, of course, to avoid this area. The protests have gotten a little out of hand, taken a little bit of a violent turn. We've heard reports of windows being smashed, a patrol car window being smashed, and as you can see, kind of a standoff happening right now on King Street and Marion Square between police and, of course, demonstrators, as police try and take back that area and ask people to go home. It is important to remember that countywide there is a curfew, starting at 11 p.m. tonight, and that will last until 7 a.m. in the morning. So it is really time to stay indoors and stay safe. Of course, we will be monitoring this all evening long. We will keep you updated on air and online at CalDon2.com. Of course, join us back here at 11 o'clock for News 2. Thank you.
We're over here outside the Hotel Bennett, guys. We want to take a quick look at this really quickly. Windows are being shattered here at the Hotel Bennett. We're hearing lots of destruction at the Hotel Bennett. We just got here on the corner. We're showing you the destruction that we're seeing here at the Hotel Bennett. We're going to walk down this way a little more so you can see the different things. You can see a brick here on the road. We're hearing some sort of gas or something is being thrown at crowds here. We're hearing lots of noises, pops. People are kind of running around at this point. And we're showing you all the Hotel Bennett here on the corner. This would be like the restaurant. It's on the end next to Virginia's. We're here on the corner of King and Hudson. So you're getting a look at what we're seeing here on the corner by Hotel Bennett. Things have now settled down. They're kind of pushing down King Street towards, away from Hotel Bennett, the opposite direction. We're going to keep following this, but people are starting to run this way. The cops are still back on the corner where we last talked to you. They really didn't move from that position as people came this way towards Hotel Bennett. And let's get another look at this side of Hotel Bennett. As you can see, again, the windows have just been knocked out, smashed, really shattered on the corner of Hotel Bennett. Again, this is the corner of King and Hudson Street, and people are continuing to move up King Street. Right now, things have just calmed down. It was really quick. We hear a lot of pops, we hear a lot of destruction, and now it's gone. So we're going to continue to move up King Street. We're going to keep bringing you live reports. We're going to keep telling you what's going on. There's still a helicopter flying overhead, but again, those police that were pushing protesters back stayed where they were. They didn't come down. And again, more windows as we walk along King Street have been busted out. So that's Virginia's here on King Street. Again, right across from Hotel Bennett, just to give you an idea. So again, we're going to continue being live. We're going to show you what's going on down here on King Street and throughout downtown Charleston as the night goes on. Again, live in downtown Charleston, Riley Benson, count on 2.
Stand by, stand by. Okay, I am here. I'm kind of down the street. Come over here. David, let me we have an individual who has now started to argue with some of the protesters. Law enforcement has come over trying to get him to stop arguing with the protester. It's very, very tense out here. A number of men have kind of stood here in the middle of the road here at Marion Square on King Street, kind of like standing up, I guess, if you will, to the law enforcement officers who are here in riot gear. You can see it's not as tense right this second where I'm located. Where Riley was, or where Riley is kind of right down the street here. That's Hotel Bennett, kind of behind where I'm at right now. You can see in both directions here, law enforcement vehicles have blocked off basically both directions here on Calhoun. Of course, King Street meeting, pretty much this entire area of Charleston is blocked off right now. And you can see here's a wall of law enforcement here at King Street. They have attempted to kind of move forward a little bit from time to time, or at least one time they did that. And then protesters did kind of push their way back toward law enforcement, but they are holding King Street here. There are things, I see glass, from some of the businesses here on King Street. You can see that, people had, doing some destruction as they were walking down King Street. And like I said a little while ago, they actually did try to grab the camera you're watching us on right here and throw it on the ground. But fortunately, David was able to prevent that. Anyhow, that's what's going on here in downtown Charleston over at Marion Square. I'm Raymond Owens. Back to you.
Raymond, Riley, thank you so much for monitoring conditions down there. We're going to continue to keep you updated. As you can see in those reports, the protests and demonstrations have taken a pretty intense turn in downtown Charleston. As you can see, breaking news, Hotel Bennett's windows were being smashed by people downtown. Some other businesses have windows smashed as well. The area police, City of Charleston police, are asking everyone to stay away from this area at the moment. I believe we're going to try and go back to Riley Benson live in downtown. Riley, are you standing by?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Taylor, we're down here. We're in front of a store along King Street, and I am actually standing here with the owner of this store. And sir, your building.
I'm the landlord, and these are one of our tenants, and this probably happened to 10 of our buildings tonight.
What does
10.
What does this mean to you? I mean, you're seeing this in real time.
I'm devastated, and I'm actually shocked that this is happening in our city. I mean, I'm having dinner at Halls with guests from New York City, and this is what I got to walk out to today? No, this is ridiculous. I mean, hoodlums on the street. Hoodlums. And no police presence, I'm sorry. There's none. I don't know what to say.
What would you tell the people who are out here tonight?
To be honest, half the people are devastated by this in the reactions. This is not Charleston, South Carolina. I don't know where all these people are coming from, but you can look at the streets now. It is mayhem. And there's nobody to break this up. This is not about Minneapolis. I mean, Minneapolis, we all agree, should have never happened. But why are we doing this to our city? It's wrong. I mean, it's... So,
I thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your
Taylor, and we're standing by, and you're going to get another look again. You can see several windows like this in this gentleman's store, along with Hotel Bennett, which is just down the corner. We haven't moved far from the last time you heard from us. We're seeing several windows like this at many stores here on King Street. Devastation. There's bricks laying on the road, everything. So we're going to, again, continue to stay on this. We're going to continue to see what's going on here on King Street and in downtown Charleston. We're going to bring you live updates again through the night. But again, an active scene, something that I don't think I've ever seen in my lifetime, for sure never in my lifetime. And hopefully I'll never have to see this again in my lifetime. Live from downtown Charleston, Riley Benson, count on 2.
But I had a gentleman ask me a minute ago what's going to happen at 11 o'clock when the curfew goes into effect for Charleston County. Oh, and by the way, Charleston County, we just received notice that Charleston County's council is having an emergency meeting as well. I would imagine that is due obviously to the curfew that will take place at 11 p.m. because that curfew will not be just the city of Charleston, but it will actually include Charleston County as a whole. So that would be my guess. That's going to be one of the main things they're going to be discussing at the Charleston County Council meeting that's going to take place. That emergency meeting being scheduled for this evening. And you can see on the ground here, this is kind of what a lot of the protesters have been throwing, just bottles of water. And you can see a number of those here on the ground here on Calhoun, in the middle of Calhoun and King. They've been throwing those kind of steadily as we've been out here toward law enforcement and expressing their displeasure. And like I said, Chief Reynolds told me earlier that while we were doing our press conference earlier, if you saw the press conference with the mayor and Chief Reynolds, he said that, you know, individuals were doing illegal activities as he was holding that press conference. We understand at least a police car, maybe more than one, was set on fire and kind of near the market from where we're at, not right here at this location, but kind of back toward the market from where we are here by Marion Square. But I see a number of police cars are actually turning around, actually driving off from this location here. You can see that they've been kind of steady sitting here in the road for a while. Now they're all driving down Calhoun Street toward Meeting from where we're located right now. And I'm trying to get an idea of which direction they may be turning. It looks like they may be heading, I don't know if they're turning off of Calhoun, or it looks like they may be turning right, maybe onto Meeting Street, or in that direction at least. That's the first time I've seen law enforcement kind of leave this area, at least the vehicles. We still have a number of officers right here next to us that are in riot gear, just preparing to handle whatever's happening here tonight. Whatever this is something you just don't see in Charleston, South Carolina.
We are in an alley here on King Street. We just kind of ducked in just past that store we were just at a couple minutes ago when we talked to you. We're hearing different things. We're seeing a lot of different things. We're seeing a lot of people now work their way back up King Street, back towards Marion Square, back towards Hotel Bennett, kind of where the area where we first started. We're hearing a lot of loud noises, a lot of just loud noises right now. We're seeing a lot of destruction. Things have kind of calmed back down now, right where we're standing, as people have made their way back up King Street. And again, we're kind of tucked in an alley. This is right next to the store. We just did that live interview with the landlord of the building. The helicopter's still flying over top of us. We haven't seen any cop cars down the street right now. But again, a lot of loud noises. We're seeing some sort of canisters being thrown by authorities. We don't know what agencies are here. There's obviously a couple different ones. But obviously a lot of loud noises. We're going to continue to follow this again live in downtown Charleston. Riley Benson, count on two.
Thank you, Riley. We are going to now get our reporter Hannah Powers on the phone. Hannah was actually off duty tonight, was having dinner in downtown Charleston with her family, a few blocks from Marion Square where Raymond Owens and of course Riley Benson are. We're going to try and get her on the phone. Hannah, she was having dinner with her family. She said she was in a restaurant called The Ordinary when something was thrown through the window. And so I want her to share a little bit about what happened over there. Hannah, are you standing by?
Taylor, hi, can you hear me?
I hear you, Hannah. Hannah, tell us a little bit about what happened as you were eating dinner with your family.
That's right. So I've locked myself in the bathroom right now so I can talk to you. I'm at dinner at The Ordinary on King Street with my mom and dad, and a heavy object was thrown through the window, and it did hit somebody sitting at the bar, and she started to scream. At that point, the waiter came over to us and told us that the situation had gotten out of hand. They were using tear gas right outside, heavy protest. So at that point, they've locked the doors to the restaurant here. I'm still here, and they have closed all of the blinds and you know, encouraging us to stay calm and things like that. But definitely things are out of hand, and that woman who was hit sitting at the bar is being treated. But the protests are definitely violent outside. I'm glad no one else was hurt, and they've encouraged us to just stay here because going outside right now is not a great option. The waitress told me that down by Fig, if you know where that is, lower down on King Street, there are really violent protests happening there, and that's where the tear gas is being used. So again, just sort of assessing the situation as we go, but definitely things have escalated as the night goes on. So right now we're going to stay here at the Ordinary. We're locked in the building, so feel pretty safe that way, but definitely a severe situation outside, Taylor.
Absolutely. Hannah, can you tell us a little bit more about the atmosphere in the restaurant right now? I can only imagine people are very afraid at this moment.
Yes, and I will tell you, we're taking it all in stride. So I will say the waitress that we had was in tears, very scared, and lots of screaming, just because I don't think anyone was expecting these bricks and these heavy objects to be thrown into the restaurant through the windows and hitting and injuring people. Definitely not what people were expecting. Obviously, we've been aware of the protests happening all day around Charleston, starting out in Marion Square, the Ravenel Bridge. But I don't think people thought they were going to get to this point, I don't want to say going after people, but, hurting the woman at the bar and things like that. And just that heightened atmosphere. So it's a lot emotionally and understanding everything as it goes on. But people are definitely scared. But right now, the only option is to stay inside the restaurant here. They did tell me they canceled reservations for the rest of the night. Every bar and restaurant on King Street has canceled their reservations for the rest of the night. Again, closing the blinds and locking the doors. I can see all the blue lights from the different police vehicles flashing outside, fire trucks, things like that. There's definitely heavy law enforcement presence trying to handle the situation. But again, it's just a lot of people, a lot of tension, a lot of feelings, a lot of unrest, and they're doing the best they can to manage that.
Absolutely. Hannah, I want you to tell us a little bit about what it looked like on King Street when you arrived to the restaurant, because of course Raymond Owens and Riley Benson are blocks away, and there's a lot of chaos right now. Was that evident when you arrived to the restaurant earlier?
Right. Well, I will tell you, I've been on King Street all day. I was out, again, my mom and dad are in town, so earlier today we were doing a little bit of shopping, and we did see those protests that happened mid to late afternoon, where people were walking through the streets. But again, very peaceful protests. People had their signs and that sort of thing. And then when we showed up to dinner tonight, we had an 8:30 reservation. I will say I had to drive, I couldn't go across the Ravenel Bridge because the Ravenel Bridge was shut down. And so I did kind of have to drive all the way around. But when we got here, everything was fine. And then, again, that brick being thrown probably only about 20 minutes ago now is when things really started to get to another level. We started seeing the cop cars, the lights flashing through the windows, and that sort of heightened our awareness of what was happening. And then, of course, the objects being thrown. Again, all the glass was broken on the windows at the front of this restaurant, and one of those objects, of course, hitting the woman at the bar and injuring her. And so they did close those blinds.
Hannah.
And again, they're handling this as they can here.
Absolutely. We're about to go right back to Marion Square where there is some chaos happening. Hannah, before I let you go really quickly, any update on the condition of the woman at the bar?
I think more than anything, it was fear of the situation. She's going to be fine and all of that. They're treating her, and everybody here is okay. It's just that fear of not realizing that it could really be that dangerous.
Absolutely, Hannah. Well, stay safe with your family. You just heard it right there from one of our News 2 reporters. Hannah Powers having dinner with her family at the Ordinary, blocks away from Marion Square when a brick was thrown in the window. Everyone is safe at the moment, sheltering in place inside that restaurant. Hannah tells us that many of the restaurants on King Street have currently locked their doors, drawn their blinds, canceled reservations, and are asking people inside to shelter in place for safety, of course. We're going to go to Raymond Owens. I believe he's standing by. Raymond in Marion Square still. Are you with us, Raymond?
Just a few minutes ago, other side of that. Again, just a few minutes ago, during our last live, we were up further north. Here, aren't it back going down here? But Caitlin, to be honest, there's really no.
Go ahead and go to News 2's Riley Benson, who is also near the Marion Square area. Riley?
Guys, we're here on King Street. Marion Square is right over my right shoulder. You can see there's a lot going on. A lot of people standing here right now. Again, that police presence is further down the road. You can see just a lot of people standing here. This is right, Hotel Bennett's right to my right. Again, a lot of their windows have been broken out, but people are just kind of congregating right now, just kind of seeing what's going on, just trying to see what's going on. There's not a lot of Not a lot of talking, not a lot of commotion. I don't really see a whole lot of police presence as of right now. They're again farther down King Street, on either side of where we're at right now. But guys, we're checking things out, and it's just kind of nothing's really happening right now. People are just kind of standing here, seeing what's going on. We're going to continue bringing live updates throughout the night, though. Again, live from Marion Square, Riley Benson. Count on 2.
Thank you, Riley, and thank you for tuning into our coverage. Of course, a lot is happening right now in downtown Charleston. The City of Charleston police are asking people to stay away from the area. We have Hannah Powers in downtown Charleston. We have Raymond Owens. We have Riley Benson really monitoring conditions. Protests started out peaceful earlier today around 2 o'clock, but as Chief Luther Reynolds addressed the issue, he said that it's really taken a more chaotic, more violent turn right now. The police chief, Luther Reynolds, as well as Mayor John Tecklenburg, say they agree with people who are frustrated and want to protest over the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis earlier in the week. However, they do not condone violence and the busting of windows like we've seen tonight. So, like I said, those protests did start peaceful around 2 o'clock as we monitored them, but they have taken quite a turn. So we're going to check back in with News 2's Raymond Owens for a live look at what's happening near Marion Square. Raymond, are you with us?
Yes, just a minute ago we had a number of, basically law enforcement had some sort of speaker that said you're being ordered to disperse. We're going to fire tear gas, and they fired a number of canisters of tear gas. You can see one right here on Calhoun Street, right here where I'm at. People are still approaching law enforcement and basically giving their, talking to them, telling them. I'm trying to see what's going on over here. There's a couple of cars driving up here. It looks like that car has something stuck underneath it. A lot of the police cars that were out in the middle of the road here are now gone. So some officers have gone to other areas here because there were a number of cars right here on Calhoun here, and then also on the other side of King Street on Calhoun as well. We still have this large group of officers in riot gear here at King Street. And this is kind of where they were firing the tear gas and the smoke. They had some smoke bombs they were firing from there as well. The Hotel Bennett, which is right down the street here from where we're standing, that's where you can see a large crowd of people gathered right there in front of the hotel. I don't know how well you can see it from where we're standing, but that's the Francis Marion. Kind of look beyond that where we're at here across King Street. That's the Hotel Bennett right there at the intersection of Marion Square or next to Marion Square as well. And you can see a number of protesters are over there. They have been here doing this, of course, throughout the afternoon and into this evening. And of course, it's taken a much more serious. And the police, as you see right here to the right here at King Street, let's come over here. You can see this is sort of, like I said, the wall of law enforcement, if you will, that's kind of kept King Street kind of locked off once the protesters. And you can see here police officers, we've got police cars out in the road as well, but they've been here kind of keeping King Street sort of locked off. Once the protesters left this portion of King Street, they actually came back from the direction of the market, made their way through here, and then law enforcement kind of set up this wall to block off this section of town. You see here, I'm going to show you right now, we've got a number of police cars coming down Calhoun. Let's see what happens here. And we've got protesters across the street here as well. It looks like these cars are trying to make it. Let's go here. It looks like they're opening a wall here for these police cars to get through the officers who are, like I said, in riot gear here. Like I said, we don't know. We can just tell you what we're seeing here. But it's definitely still a very, very active situation. I believe. I'm trying to see. I almost thought I saw 2 helicopters in the sky right now, but there's one still going down King Street over here. It's been hovering over us for a good part of the afternoon. And you can see here in the middle of King Street, across from the officers, you see the officers right here. If you look straight back over here, you've had individuals standing in the middle of King Street, sort of shouting and saying things to the officers. We've had a number of people throwing bottles of water and other things toward the officers. A couple of times we've had a police car drive down King Street. Okay, we've got something going on here now. It looks like these are motorcyclists. Let's see what happens here. They're revving their engines. Okay. Right now, they are basically riding up here next to, I don't even know if you can hear us, but they're driving around right here in front of them. In front of this wall. What you're seeing here we go, there's another tear gas or smoke canister or tear gas canister. This motorcycle here is producing some smoke of its own. And just a wide swath of various types of protests here in downtown Charleston. And again, you have these individuals that have been standing here in the middle of the road, kind of doing a protest, holding up a sign. We've heard a number of people chanting Black Lives Matter. A number of people obviously very, very upset here in downtown Charleston. And like I said, doing different things to express that frustration. All right, so basically that's what's going on here right now. Of course, we're going to continue to bring you the latest from downtown Charleston at Marion Square. I'm Raymond Owens, back to you.
Thank you, Raymond. What you just saw there live was people approaching Marion Square on motorcycles, throwing some kind of gas canister. Like I said, the evening taking a very chaotic turn. We also have News 2's Riley Benson standing by to bring us an update from another part of downtown Charleston. Riley, can you hear me?
Yes, Taylor, I can hear you. I'm here on King Street. I'm standing basically in Marion Square, just off Marion Square on King Street. A lot of heavy gas presence right now in the eyes and the mouth. And we're on the other side of where Raymond Owens is. So Raymond Owens is on the other side of the police presence. You can see over my shoulder. People are now leaving. Guys, I got to send it back to you. Live in downtown Charleston, Riley Benson, count on 2.
We're getting Riley Benson to safety. What is happening from what I can see is that police are trying to get people to disperse from this area. Of course, curfew is at 11 o'clock. This is a countywide curfew. So police are trying to disperse people. They're apparently using tear gas at the moment. So we needed to get Riley to safety, which he is doing now. So we will continue to monitor conditions. Is Raymond standing by? Raymond may have had to go somewhere as well. Raymond, are you still there? We want to check back in with you over there. Raymond, what are conditions like over there?
Yes, yeah, I'm back here. I'm here again on Calhoun Street. Here, basically, conditions are very, very tense. We understand. I was just told that there was actually a looting of the Apple Store on King Street. I did ask an officer if we could go down there to take a look at that. Right now, they're not allowing anyone at all down King Street, which is understandable at this time. I can see some broken glass here at the Walgreens, kind of behind us, where we're at. If you know where Walgreens, right here on the corner of King and Calhoun, they have broken glass there as well. You've got protesters across the street. It's obviously having all of those motorcycles come through here made it a very active scene here just a couple of minutes ago. Things are still tense, but we don't have any active situation here right now that we saw a few minutes ago. We have a gentleman holding up a sign. I can't see the sign from where we're at here, but he's been standing there holding up that sign for the last couple of minutes here. And we have people protesting up and down King Street. Riley, like I said, he's over there at the Hotel Bennett, which is kind of across Marion Square from where we are at. But that's basically what's going on here. You can see the law enforcement continues to have this King Street here blocked off, and they're in riot gear and basically are kind of holding this area at this time. And we've got, there's just a lot of activity happening here in downtown Charleston. Live in downtown, I'm Raymond Owens. Back to you.
Raymond, thank you. Just a quick correction to what I said earlier. We cannot confirm if that tear gas in the air was from law enforcement or demonstrators and protesters. We are working to learn that information. But nonetheless, there is tear gas in the Marion Square area that, of course, was affecting Riley as he tried to report. So we are still monitoring conditions. Riley, I think, got over to a safer area. So we are going to try and check back in with Riley Benson. Riley, are you standing by? Riley, can you tell us a little bit about what happened earlier? Okay, I don't think Riley is standing by. We will check back in with him. There's just a lot going on right now. Of course, it's hard to see our city in this condition. Police are in riot gear standing by. There's multiple agencies downtown trying to regain control over what is taking place there now. What we know now is that multiple businesses have had windows smashed. That includes the Ordinary, Hotel Bennett, Virginia's on King, Kim's on King. I mean, multiple businesses. We are hearing reports of the Apple Store being looted. We are trying to confirm that, but boots on the ground, that is what we are hearing. We cannot get our guys over there at this time because of safety, of course. So, I mean, it's pretty much a showdown right now between these law enforcement officers and the protesters that are, you know, have been demonstrating all day and are still in the Marion Square area now. We're still monitoring things. We've got boots on the ground. Like I said earlier, the county-wide curfew does go into effect in less than an hour at 11 o'clock. This applies to everyone in Charleston County, not just the city of Charleston. Although the city of Charleston, downtown Charleston specifically, is where we are seeing these demonstrations and protests right now that have taken a chaotic turn. That curfew is for the entire Charleston County from 11 o'clock, which is in less than an hour, until 7 a.m. in the morning. Now, Mayor John Tecklenburg and Police Chief Luther Reynolds did hint earlier during a news conference that they may extend that curfew depending upon conditions. Earlier, Police Chief Luther Reynolds addressed what was happening in downtown Charleston, such as the window smashing and the violence, and he said that this is obviously not condoned. They do have law enforcement on scene, ready to make arrests and monitoring the conditions. But what it appears to be happening right now in Marion Square is just police trying to regain control of this issue. That is really all-encompassing Marion Square and all of King Street for the most part, for a few blocks around that Marion Square area. So we're going to continue to monitor this. We have News 2 at 11, of course, and we will bring you updates of the day. You're taking a live look at Marion Square right now. Earlier, just a few moments ago, we actually saw some demonstrators on motorcycles drive through and drop some gas cans, and we're working to learn what that is. But I believe we have Mayor John Tecklenburg standing by with a press conference from earlier in the day. So let's take a look at Mayor John Tecklenburg and what he had to say.
So we've asked the county to do a county-wide curfew from 11 tonight till 7 in the morning. We think that'll keep everyone safe and express the importance, as the chief just mentioned. We've got to do this peacefully, y'all. We've got to do this within the confines of law and order. We certainly advocate and are aligned with those who seek justice over this murder that occurred. We want that expression to occur, but it's got to be done peacefully.
Of course, that's Mayor John Tecklenburg, mayor of City of Charleston, talking. That was about 2 hours ago. He was addressing the protests and the demonstrations taking place in Marion Square. Of course, he says he does stand in solidarity with people that are angry over the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis earlier this week. However, they cannot condone the breaking of windows, any looting or anything like that happening in downtown Charleston. So that is why they have heavy police presence downtown right now, monitoring conditions. And that is why they enacted the curfew that starts at 11 o'clock tonight. So we do have News 2's Hannah Powers standing by. We actually have her on the phone. She was off this evening having dinner with her family at the Ordinary on King Street, a few blocks away from Marion Square, when a brick was thrown in the window of the restaurant she was dining in. Hannah, are you standing by?
Hi, Taylor. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Hannah. Can you tell us a little bit about the conditions at the Ordinary? Earlier, you told me that everyone in the restaurant was asked to shelter in place.
Right, and Taylor, I want to let you know things have actually really escalated since the last time I checked in with you. So update on what's happening now. Lots of profanity being spray painted on the building across the street. I just talked to my waiter. They delivered our dinners in a takeaway box, and they're asking everybody to leave immediately. And they're actually asking us to use the back door. Front door's locked. The blinds have been drawn, and they're sneaking us out into the back door. Because things have gotten increasingly more violent and dangerous. I mean, waiters are in tears. And so myself, my mother, and my father, and one other couple here at the restaurant are the last people here. Everybody else has left. But again, we're a little bit concerned because the condition of the street right now, very, very dangerous to say the least. And again, earlier when I checked in with you about 30 minutes ago, the brick had been thrown through the window, injuring the woman at the bar. And then since then, things have gotten increasingly violent. So again, waiters are very worried here, and they're trying to usher us out of here as quickly as possible through the back door into the alley to try and avoid some of the things that are happening outside the storefront. Lots of screaming and yelling and profanity and all of those things. Everything you could imagine and more is completely happening here.
Hannah, from what I can see live in Marion Square, there is a police presence, but it almost seems that there's even more demonstrators and more protesters than it seems like we're seeing police on the ground. I mean, do you feel like there's a strong enough police presence over where you are?
Well, Taylor, I'll tell you right now, I cannot see any flashing lights and things like that. I only see the protesters. I am absolutely sure that our Charleston Police Department and all the other law enforcement agencies in the area are doing their part in full force, but the numbers of people are incredible. Obviously, my parents are from out of town. They were staying at a hotel on King Street. I'm now worried for them. I don't want them going back there. We will be kicked out of this restaurant very soon. Management's trying to shut it down as quickly as possible. We went from shelter in place to now they are just trying to get everybody out of here.
Absolutely, Hannah.
Hannah,
I'm going to interrupt you really
spray
quickly.
cans and graffiti.
Absolutely, Hannah. I'm going to interrupt you really quickly. We will check back in with you. I know that you were sheltering in place and the Ordinary is now asking you to leave. The reason I interrupt is we want to take you guys right to a live look at the Apple Store on King Street with News 2's Riley Benson. Riley, can you hear me? Can you tell me what happened here?
Well, Taylor, we're here on King Street, right outside the Apple Store. I'm going to go ahead and step away so you can take a look. We really just got on scene. We weren't here when this happened, but the alarm is still going off. There are still security and crime scene people, police inside checking out the scene, trying to determine, obviously, when and how this happened. But again, you're seeing right now, this is behind the police presence on King Street. So not as many people, not as tense of a situation here, but obviously you can see massive damage to the Apple's front store here. One door is completely shattered, and then the top window, and then on the far side, you can see that window is broken as well. But again, not a lot of presence here. Again, crime scene units, police are on scene trying to obviously determine what happened, when it happened, and they're working to keep everyone safe. So we're going to continue to check in with you guys live from downtown Charleston. Riley Benson, count on 2.
Can you still hear me? Riley, what I want to know is, were you able to see people taking things from the store? What did it look like when you got there? Was the store being robbed?
Well, Taylor, no, when we got here, the only person inside is still the crime scene unit technician who's still inside right now, kind of checking things out. I can't really tell. I mean, it looks like things may have been taken, but I really don't want to go ahead and say that without confirming that. We can still see some obvious devices. There's some phones, some computers, but when we got here, there was really no one here other than police and crime scene units, kind of working the scene, trying to figure out when and how this happened. But no, there was nobody actively looting when we arrived here at Apple, Taylor.
Thank you so much, Riley. All right, Riley, thank you. And like you just heard, Riley is at the Apple Store on King Street, where it appears, well, we can see that the windows were crashed at the Apple Store. He's still working to learn more. There is a crime scene investigator from the city of Charleston walking through the Apple Store at the moment. We still have News 2's Raymond Owens standing by. He's still in Marion Square. Raymond, let me know if you got me. We want to go to you now. Raymond, tell us a little bit about what's happening over there.
Yeah, I'm here at Marion Square, and you can see we still have basically this standoff between some protesters and then this large group of police officers who are waiting here. Now, I did want to confirm to you that they were firing tear gas. We definitely know that law enforcement did fire some tear gas because they actually announced that ahead of time. And it seems like we have another motorcycle that may be riding up here. It looks like they decided to turn around. But there's a number of people all throughout here. Everywhere you look in every direction, all the way around, there are some people out here, different protesters. Not everyone's saying much, but they're all out here as part of this scene here. You can see King Street, of course, like I said, blocked off here at Calhoun by these members of law enforcement in riot gear. And they have been firing some smoke bombs and some tear gas And also, like I said, they even announced the tear gas ahead of time, saying they're getting ready to fire tear gas, and then I think 2 or 3 tear gas canisters were fired over into the street here. And those things work immediately. I mean, your eyes, your nose, you can definitely tell you cannot stay right where you're at when that tear gas does start to come out of the canister. So we see now a number of police cars are riding up Calhoun Street again. Like I said earlier, they actually we didn't have quite so many police officers that they were leaving this area, the actual cars, but it looks like they are now back here. Hold on a second, I'm hearing something. Oh, it looks like they were announcing to everyone to get back, that they're getting ready to fire, and they just fired. It looks like you can see down here, that's by the Hotel Bennett, where that the smoke is. I don't know, I'm assuming that may be a smoke canister or it could be tear gas. I don't know for sure, but definitely a lot of smoke coming out of whatever was fired here. And like I said, that came from here, from where the law enforcement officers were kind of headed that direction, but they did get on the intercom and tell people to back up some. I didn't really see anybody moving though. It's pretty much kind of staying, people are sort of staying where they're at. There's a number of people here in Marion Square over by the Hotel Bennett. Also, even, you know, small groups of people on either side of Calhoun from where I'm at right this minute. Just a lot of chaos here. I've seen a couple of individuals getting into arguments amongst each other, discussing political issues and discussing, you know, the problem, obviously, the concerns about violence. But that's basically what's going on out here right now, Taylor. I mean, it's just a very, very tense scene.
Before we let you go, I would love to know, do you feel that people are starting to move away from this area? I know police have made multiple attempts to clear the area this evening, and we're quickly approaching the 11 o'clock Charleston County curfew.
I don't feel, I feel like there's still a lot of people here. It's hard to tell exactly how many because there's people also in Marion Square. There's still a number of people down the street here, but I also see, if you look down King Street past Hotel Bennett, you can see law enforcement down there as well. I did not earlier see police cars over in that area, so they may be preparing for that 11 o'clock curfew and kind of stationing themselves to start to kind of seal off everything around 11 o'clock. I don't know how doable that even is with the number of people here and the number of law enforcement here and just the seriousness of which we've been watching all of this happen for the last few hours right here in downtown Charleston. So I don't know if people are moving from this area. It certainly seems like there's a lot of people still out here at this time.
And Raymond, is there still traffic moving through the area, of possible maybe civilians moving through the area? I know a lot of people were dining in restaurants at King Street, on King Street, excuse me, when a lot of this broke out.
Well, you can't go down King Street. I can't even go down King Street right now. That's pretty much blocked off, at least here at Marion Square. Now, you might be able to come back from the other direction on King Street. I do know you just see some vehicles driving through here. Here's a truck right here, another vehicle driving through. There have been a few vehicles coming through here sporadically, not a whole lot. But I guess it's just if someone wants to drive down there, I guess that they can find a way into King Street. I would definitely not advise that, though, at this time.
Thank you, Raymond. And of course, what you just saw was our reporters and our crew that are in downtown Charleston right now monitoring conditions of a demonstration and a protest that started earlier today, but then kind of took a more chaotic turn, of course. What we showed you live was multiple businesses, including the Hotel Bennett, the Ordinary, the Apple Store on King Street, all had their windows smashed as police try and regain control of this area through the use of tear gas, asking people to move out of the area. Of course, they've been asking people to relocate and go home for a while now, and we're quickly approaching the 11 o'clock Charleston County curfew. So we're continuing to monitor conditions. I believe News 2's Riley Benson is standing by. Riley, can you hear me?
Yeah, Taylor, I can hear you. And again, we're here on King Street, just outside the Apple Store where we were when we joined you last time. I just spoke with an individual who was here when this actually occurred. He told me it was just after 9 o'clock, so about an hour and a half ago. He told me a group of people obviously broke down the door, went inside. They did get some stuff, some items out. Don't know what, obviously. but he told me he could see some people taking some items out of this store. Again, I did try to speak with authorities, police here on the scene. They weren't able to share any information with me as far as what happened and what the latest is. But again, I did speak with an individual who was here when this did occur. He was here, and again, we'll let you see so you can see it clearly. When these doors, the windows were broken into, when the group of people went inside this building, and he was able to tell us that some things were taken out of the store. Again, I don't know anything else other than that. And like I said, police are still here on the scene. The crime scene unit gentleman is pulling away right now. So obviously, probably an active scene still, and we're going to continue to monitor things here on King Street. Again, King Street, this is the Apple store, and that individual who I spoke to just before we came on camera told me that this store was broken into right around 9 o'clock, kind of when things started to pick up intensity around this area on King Street, and then obviously the police moved that group back down King Street towards the Hotel Bennett. So again, we're going to bring you live updates throughout the night on King Street in downtown Charleston. Okay.
Riley, before we let you go, if you can still hear me, I think a lot of people want to know what the other stores look like on King Street right now. Are you seeing broken windows in other businesses as well?
Well, Taylor, and kind of like Raymond has been talking about, this section of King Street where we're at, this has been the only store that we've seen with a window broken in that we've seen since we left the Marion Square area. Obviously, that line of law enforcement police are set up right there by Moe's, if you're familiar with the area. And on this side of King Street, it's really clear. Again, the cop cars, different things, police cars, excuse me, are kind of clearing this area. A lot of the streets, the stores, the windows are not really broken here, Taylor. But on the other side, when we joined you by Hotel Bennett, things were really starting to pick up in intensity. A lot of windows were starting to be smashed, including the Hotel Bennett, which we showed you.
Riley, thank you.
Yeah, I'm here at Marion Square, and you can see we still have basically this standoff between some protesters and then this large group of police officers who are waiting here. Now, I did want to confirm to you that they were firing tear gas. We definitely know that law enforcement did fire some tear gas because they actually announced that ahead of time. And it seems like we have another motorcycle that may be riding up here. It looks like they decided to turn around. But there's a number of people all throughout here. Everywhere you look in every direction, all the way around, there are some people out here, different protesters. Not everyone's saying much, but they're all out here as part of this scene here. You can see King Street, of course, like I said, blocked off here at Calhoun by these members of law enforcement in riot gear. And they have been firing some smoke bombs and some tear gas. And also, like I said, they even announced the tear gas ahead of time, saying they're getting ready to fire tear gas. And then I think 2 or 3 tear gas canisters were fired over into the street here. And those things work immediately. I mean, your eyes, your nose, you can definitely tell you cannot stay right where you're at when that tear gas does start to come out of the canister. So we see now a number of police cars are riding up Calhoun Street again. Like I said earlier, they actually we didn't have quite so many police officers that they were leaving this area, the actual cars, but it looks like they are now back here. Hold on a second, I'm hearing something. Oh, it looks like they were announcing that everyone to get back, that they're getting ready to fire, and they just fired. It looks like you can see down here, that's by the Hotel Bennett, where that the smoke is. I don't know if, I'm assuming that may be a smoke canister or it could be tear gas. I don't know for sure, but definitely a lot of smoke coming out of whatever was fired here. And like I said, that came from here, from where the law enforcement officers were kind of headed that direction. But they did get on the intercom and tell people to back up some. I didn't really see anybody moving though. It's pretty much kind of staying. People are sort of staying where they're at. There's a number of people here in Marion Square over by the Hotel Bennett. Also, even, small groups of people on either side of Calhoun from where I'm at right this minute. Just a lot of chaos here. I've seen a couple of individuals getting into arguments amongst each other, discussing political issues and discussing, the problem, obviously, the concerns about violence. But that's basically what's going on out here right now, Taylor. I mean, it's just a very, very tense scene.
We we let you go, I would love to know, do you feel that people are starting to move away from this area? I know police have made multiple attempts to clear the area this evening, and we're quickly approaching the 11 o'clock Charleston County curfew.
I don't feel, I feel like there's still a lot of people here. It's hard to tell exactly how many because there's people also in Marion Square. There's still a number of people down the street here, but I also see, if you look down King Street past Hotel Bennett, you can see law enforcement down there as well. I did not earlier see police cars over in that area, so they may be preparing for that 11 o'clock curfew and kind of stationing themselves to start to kind of seal off everything around 11 o'clock. I don't know how doable that even is with the number of people here and the number of law enforcement here and just the seriousness of which we've been watching all of this happen for the last few hours right here in downtown Charleston. So I don't know if people are moving from this area. It certainly seems like there's a lot of people still out here at this time.
And Raymond, is there still traffic moving through the area of possible maybe civilians moving through the area? I know a lot of people were dining in restaurants at on King Street, excuse me, when a lot of this broke out.
Well, you can't go down King Street. I can't even go down King Street right now. That's pretty much blocked off, at least here at Marion Square. Now, you might be able to come back from the other direction on King Street. I do know you just see some vehicles driving through here. Here's a truck right here, another vehicle driving through. There have been a few vehicles coming through here sporadically, not a whole lot. But I guess it's just if someone wants to drive down there, I guess they can find a way into King Street. I would definitely not advise that, though, at this time.
Thank you, Raymond. And of course, what you just saw was our reporters and our crew that are in downtown Charleston right now monitoring conditions of a demonstration and a protest that started earlier today, but then kind of took a more chaotic turn, of course. What we showed you live was multiple businesses, including the Hotel Bennett, the Ordinary, the Apple Store on King Street, all had their windows smashed as police try and regain control of this area through the use of tear gas, asking people to move out of the area. Of course, they've been asking people to relocate and go home for a while now, and we're quickly approaching the 11 o'clock Charleston County curfew. So we're continuing to monitor conditions. I believe News 2's Riley Benson is standing by. Riley, can you hear me?
Yeah, Taylor, I can hear you. And again, we're here on King Street, just outside the Apple Store where we were when we joined you last time. I just spoke with an individual who was here when this actually occurred. He told me it was just after 9 o'clock, so about an hour and a half ago. He told me a group of people obviously broke down the door, went inside. They did get some stuff, some items out. Don't know what, obviously, but he told me he could see some people taking some items out of this store. Again, I did try to speak with authorities, police here on the scene. They weren't able to share any information with me as far as what happened and what the latest is. But again, I did speak with an individual who was here when this did occur. He was here, and again, we'll let you see so you can see it clearly. When these doors, the windows were broken into, when a group of people went inside this building, and he was able to tell us that some things were taken out of the store. Again, I don't know anything else other than that. And like I said, police are still here on the scene. The crime scene unit gentleman is pulling away right now. So obviously, probably an active scene still, and we're going to continue to monitor things here on King Street. Again, King Street, this is the Apple Store, and that individual who I spoke to just before we came on camera told me that this store was broken into right around 9 o'clock, kind of when things started to pick up intensity around this area on King Street, and then obviously the police moved that group back down King Street towards the Hotel Bennett. So again, we're going to bring you live updates throughout the night on King Street in downtown Charleston. Okay.
Riley, before we let you go, if you can still hear me, I think a lot of people want to know what the other stores look like on King Street right now. Are you seeing broken windows in other businesses as well?
Well, Taylor, and kind of like Raymond has been talking about, this section of King Street where we're at, this has been the only store that we've seen with a window broken in that we've seen since we left the Marion Square area. Obviously, that line of law enforcement police are set up right there by Moe's, if you're familiar with the area. And On this side of King Street, it's really clear. Again, the cop cars, different things, police cars, excuse me, are kind of clearing this area. A lot of the streets, the stores, the windows are not really broken here, Taylor. But on the other side, when we joined you by Hotel Bennett, things were really starting to pick up in intensity. A lot of windows were starting to be smashed, including the Hotel Bennett, which we showed you.
Riley, thank you. We have an update right now. I'm actually just got it into our newsroom, so I'm going to read from this paper. But Charleston City Council had an emergency meeting that was just held. The mayor did make some statements I want to read to you. The mayor, John Tecklenburg, stated that today was the scariest day for Charleston. This was a quote. He said, "It was estimated that a couple of thousands of people gathered in protest and solidarity, of course, with what happened in Minneapolis on Monday. However, as night arrived, a group of 500 to 100 continued to march in the streets of downtown Charleston." Now, what the City of Charleston Police Chief Luther Reynolds is saying is right now they suspect that the group of about 50 to 100 that are currently wreaking havoc in downtown Charleston, they believe these individuals to not even be from the Low Country. That's what their early assumptions are about this. They're working to learn where they are from. One thing that was said at this emergency meeting that was just held in the City of Charleston is that they believe the remaining protesters of about 50 to 100 people are unorganized and using the dark web to hide and plan their next attack. So that is what we are learning right now. At this time, law enforcement, multiple agencies are monitoring downtown Charleston and working to disperse these crowds. And we've been going back and forth to our reporters who are just showing some pretty scary conditions of some pretty angry protesters. So right now it is 10:30. We are approaching the 11 o'clock countywide curfew that was approved for all of Charleston County. Right now, I'm told that council is inquiring about calling in the National Guard and other law enforcement officials. That right now, that's just something they're inquiring about. That decision has not yet been made at this point. They do say that the law enforcement officers monitoring downtown right now are working 12-hour shifts trying to get this under control. The police chief making a statement saying that council is asking anyone who is interested in helping with the cleanup tomorrow morning in Marion Square to please come out at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. They're asking citizens to help in this cleanup. As you can see, lots of businesses, innocent businesses, had their windows vandalized and glass broken in their windows. So it's definitely a chaotic scene. Of course, the curfew will last until 7 a.m. It will start in about 30 minutes here at 11 p.m. It will last until 7 a.m. But Charleston County Council, along with the police chief, are inviting citizens to help clean on Marion Square at 8 a.m. So that's just some updated information I have right now. Just to reiterate for those of you tuning in, the police chief Luther Reynolds from City of Charleston is making an early assumption saying that he believes these 50 to 100 protesters that are still in Marion Square right now are from possibly out of town, and he believes they're using the dark web to facilitate this vandalism. So we're going to go right to News 2, and we're going to go right to News 2's Raymond Owens, who is in Marion Square right now. Raymond, I've just been told that Berkeley County law enforcement officers have come in to assist the City of Charleston right now.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was going to mention that the Berkeley County Sheriff's deputy did just drive down King Street and turn left here on Calhoun just a minute ago, so that is accurate. We just had something else fired from law enforcement toward the protesters, and in the last 30 seconds or so, it has gotten a little more agitated right here where I'm at. As you can see, these people are kind of not coming over to the law enforcement line, but definitely getting a little closer than they were. A lot of yelling, a lot of expressing their displeasure, if you will, toward law enforcement. And it's definitely does not look like this is wrapping up anytime in the near future. From what I can see, it looks like we've got another smoke bomb right here. And that was just pushed right over here. Look at, okay, we've got some more things being fired right down King Street. And you can see right here next to us, this is a smoke bomb right here on the ground, right in front of where we're at. This gentleman just kind of kicked it off away from the edge of the road here. There it is. I see something back here. Down King Street, there's something that looks like it must be being fired as well. Here we go. We've got a lot more firing coming from law enforcement toward the protesters. They're trying to kick these containers back to our area. Again, I'm here at Marion Square, and we're here at the corner of King, and it has dramatically increased the intensity of what's going on here in the last minute, really, as we've been live here on the air. We're right here in front of the Francis Marion Hotel, so if you're familiar with the downtown, oh, and it looks like law enforcement is starting to walk down. We're actually, law enforcement is starting to walk down King Street, and we're gonna just kind of follow along with them. So let's right now I'm trying to walk through all of. Law enforcement is approaching the protesters, and David, let's go over here on this side. Come on over here. Approaching the protest. They're spreading out across the entire street, and let's see here. We're walking down King Street. This is the Francis Marion Hotel to our left. We're looking at protesters. The protesters are slowly backing up. Law enforcement is basically kind of pushing the protesters back at this point. It looks like they have decided to enforce, basically clearing this area of the protesters. There's definitely some tear gas in this area. I can feel it in my eyes, my nose. And it's hard to see anything because there's so much tear gas right where we're at. There's a lot going on right here. They're kind of, we're kind of stopping right here where we're at in front of the Marion Square. But it's hard to concentrate, isn't it, David? David, let's come back over here.
Raymond, if you can hear me, are the protesters
not
that's
have
now
tear
turned
gas
into rioting, are they apparently
masks
listening
on or
to
anything,
police
so
at
it's
this
hard.
time? Are they moving back? I don't know if Raymond...
I don't think so. Right now, we can't even hardly see or think right now, Taylor.
Okay.
Hold on just a second. We're coming over here. We had to get away from the tear gas. There was just too much of it, Taylor. So anyhow.
Hey Raymond, this is Brendan Clark here in the studio.
Okay, we're backing off. We're backing off. But anyhow.
We definitely want you to stay safe,
Raymond.
we definitely want you to be safe and you to stay safe. I know you're having a hard time hearing us.
Let's see right here. We've got the police is basically pulling into King Street here as well. So yeah, definitely this is I think we got a little too much tear gas on us here. So, but I think we're back where it's not burning so much right this second. But you can see law enforcement is behind. Right. Law enforcement is now behind this line of officers that are walking down the street. They're making their way that way. As you can see, that gentleman is firing off the tear gas and the smoke canisters, and I mean, it's what that tear gas really does a number on you. And we're over here now where it's not quite as strong where we are at right this second, but basically police are making their way down King Street and kind of enforcing this area and getting trying to get the protesters to kind of move back, and they do seem to be clearing this section of King Street here. You can see here, David, they do seem to be clearing. There's not really anybody on either side of the street here at this point, so they are slowly kind of clearing King Street with that line of officers that has basically been standing there at the corner of King and Calhoun for much of the evening. And you can see there's a number of people here around us right now, but for the most part, the group of protesters that were throwing things and that kind of thing appear to be down King Street from where I'm standing. We're going to continue to follow everything going on here, and we will bring you more information as it becomes available to us. Live in downtown Charleston, I'm Raymond Owens.
Thank you very much. News 2's Brendan Clark right here joining Taylor. Thank you, Taylor,
Brendan,
for having me in here right now
as
we continue to cover what's been going on in downtown Charleston and in the area. Some people have been called domestic terrorists and what's going on down there. I know I'm coming in late right now, but I am here right now, and I've seen some sad things happening
Absolutely.
in downtown Charleston for sure.
Absolutely, Brendan. And what started off as a peaceful protest earlier around 2 o'clock has really turned into a riot scene right now in downtown Charleston as police try and regain control of Marion Square. So we're going to go to News 2's Hannah Powers right now on the phone. Hannah, let us know if you got us. Hannah shared a story. She was dining in a restaurant earlier when a brick was thrown into the restaurant. That restaurant was the Ordinary on King Street. Hannah?
Hi, Taylor. Can you hear me okay?
We hear you.
Okay, so this is going to be a quick update because actually myself, my mother, and father are the last ones here at the restaurant. They're about to usher us through the side alley to get out. They've actually barricaded the door. So they start off by locking the door and closing the blinds. Now they have barricaded the door with all the tables and the bottom floor of the restaurant to try and keep us safe. I will say King Street appears to be closed now to all vehicle traffic. Lots of fire trucks, law enforcement vehicles of all types being used. And hold on, the waiter's talking to us right now. Yes, so the cops are on their way right now. So, yes, things, again, escalating very quickly. We are actually about to be ushered out into an alley outside of the restaurant so we don't have to exit onto King Street. So I'm going to have to leave you guys soon because we are, again, situation is still very dangerous. And, again, just trying to get my parents and myself to safety. So we will have to, I'll have to leave you guys here. But, again, restaurant has been barricaded from the outside in. We're going to leave through a side alley. It is dangerous. Please don't come down here if you don't have to. And Taylor, that's I'll text you some updates as they come.
Okay, Hannah, we appreciate that. We will be following you on social media. Hannah, do you have a second to talk about the scene down there? We know the police officers are moving, and there is a curfew at 11 o'clock. Do you think, do you see any indication that the people down there will actually adhere to that 11 o'clock curfew?
You know, Brendan, I can't be sure. There's a lot of anger and frustration. Again, the whole situation popping off here at the restaurant I'm at, the Ordinary, when those bricks were thrown through the window, actually injuring a woman sitting at the bar. And since then, we've seen the profanity being painted on the sides of buildings. The restaurant here has tried to lock everything down, barricade, all of those things, because there are still very much people outside that are angry and frustrated and doing some violent things. That are injuring people and making people feel uncomfortable and scared and screaming and all those things. Again, waiters in tears. So we are going to have to get out of here and try to get to safety. Again, my parents were staying at a hotel on King Street, which is not the place to be right now. So we will be finding a place outside of here to get to safely.
Absolutely, Hannah. I'm sure it's a very scary scene you experienced there tonight. About how many people were in the restaurant? What was a little bit of their reaction, if you can describe that for us?
Right, Taylor. Well, I will tell you they were definitely following all the social distancing and the tables spread out. So not full capacity, but definitely at that half capacity that's allowed right now in the city of Charleston. At this point, it is now just my mother, my father. They're standing right beside me, myself, and some of the wonderful wait staff here who has, I will say, has been excellent, just making sure everybody stays safe because very high tension, definitely danger and all of those things, and they're doing everything they can to make people feel safe. They are about to escort myself and mother and father out into, again, a side alley so we don't have to go out onto King Street because things are still active out there and not a place I would feel comfortable with myself and parents right now. And the tensions were very high in here, people crying and screaming and upset because very scary for sure.
All right, News 2's Hannah Powers is downtown in the thick of things down there with their parents. Thank you very much, Hannah. We do want you to get to safety as quick as possible. Safety of our employees is priority number one, and we certainly hope they stay safe down there. We have Raymond Owens, Riley Benson, Hannah Powers down there. Of course, it's a very scary situation for a lot of people down there, as we know that curfew is coming up in just 13 minutes. Okay,
Brendan. Yeah, right now, Riley Benson is actually standing by. He was able to get to a safe point in downtown Charleston. He's been monitoring Marion Square. We're going to go right now live to News 2's Riley Benson. Riley?
Well, Taylor, right now we're on the corner of King and Calhoun Street, just outside the Francis Marion Hotel. It's off to my right here. The police force, again, as Raymond was kind of telling you, has started to move down King Street. They're closer towards Bennett, Hotel Bennett right now. There is a significant presence of people, and things are getting quite tense right now where we're at. There is some stuff being exchanged between bystanders and the police that are here on the street on King Street. Again, we're across the street from Marion Square. People are just kind of hanging out and things are kind of tense here. Now, if we can get a look over here, and I think Raymond might have showed you this, but just a line of obviously police cars, law enforcement vehicles are lining Calhoun Street from CVS down towards Mint, down Calhoun Street. Just a line of law enforcement officers. We're kind of waiting to see what is going to happen. And again, you can see now that things are starting to pick up in intensity. Words are being exchanged between people. It's a very tense scene. This area had been cleared as law enforcement had worked down King Street. And now things are kind of stationary again as things are picking up in intensity. They're trying to clear the street. You can hear that. So tear gas or some sort of substance is being threatened. So things are certainly tense in this area. Taylor, we're going to send it back to you in the studio.
Okay, Riley, we are watching this video while you talk right now. This is definitely escalating a little bit because I think that 11 o'clock curfew, they want to get these people off the streets. Have they given you that kind of indication?
Yeah, Brendan, if you can still hear me, I'll jump back on camera. Yeah, they are right now trying to disperse people. And again, if you could hear us, the threat was if you did not disperse, they were going to start spraying. They did spray people and back down Calhoun Street. So right here, we're underneath the Francis Marion. People start backing down Calhoun. So yes, they are trying to clear the streets, I think, as much as they can. They're threatening to spray if you do not disperse. And now that crowd is now out of our sight. Looks like they have marched down Calhoun. And again, law enforcement still a heavy presence here on the corner of Calhoun and King as they're trying to get things cleared up, Brendan.
Of course, Riley, and earlier you were at the Apple store on King Street where an apparent looting took place and broken windows.
We're going to get a look down.
Are you seeing more businesses with broken windows out there right now?
Taylor, right now, the last 5-10 minutes, we haven't seen any of that kind of activity on King Street. Again, things are kind of moving up King Street away from us, but we did see a lot of windows broken in, and I'm going to down towards Hotel Bennett and beyond. We were hearing more windows being broken, a lot of like rocks. It almost looked like they grabbed them off the sidewalk and threw it towards windows. So yes, there certainly a lot of activity with windows being smashed down King Street. But again, where we were by the Apple store really looked like it was the only one that had its windows broken into, Taylor.
All right, Riley, can you give us an idea, Riley? You are right there in the thick of it. What are those rioters, and I'm not going to call them protesters, I'm calling them rioters at this point because of what they're doing to the holy city. What have they said? What has been the interaction with them and law enforcement? What are they saying to them?
Brendan, frankly, it's not pleasant. A lot of profanity, cuss words are being exchanged. Nothing good is being said from towards the police. It's just a really upsetting scene, honestly, Brendan. That's really the best thing I can tell you.
All right, Riley Benson continues our coverage as we are in downtown Charleston as we continue to see what's happening as a result of protests that began early this afternoon and has turned sideways, definitely gone in a bad direction as we now are seeing rioters down there doing heavy damage to local property, business owners, retailers down there. I have talked to several retailers who have businesses on King Street saying they are very upset. Some even told me they weren't even notified about what was happening today, and that's what upset them greatly, that they were open today, and said they didn't even know this was going to happen today, this protest, and they may have taken precautions had they known.
Absolutely. We're going to go right to Raymond Owens, who's live in downtown Charleston. Raymond, are you standing by?
You can walk. Yeah, I'm down here on King Street. I want to show you guys, this is where the police kind of pushed the protesters through here just a minute ago. And the cigar lounge right here, you can see someone has basically busted out the windows here at the cigar lounge on King Street. And protesters are now further down King Street here. We're just going to kind of walk down the street here and see what we can see as we walk down the road. There was too much tear gas for us to even go this far just a few minutes ago, just a couple of minutes ago. I can hear, sounds like more shots being fired of some sort, probably tear gas being fired into the crowd. We also saw that there were officers walking down Calhoun Street away from Marion Square, and they had handheld tear gas and were firing tear gas at the people, getting them to disperse. We're now here at the Hotel Bennett And this is kind of where it looks like law enforcement, their line is kind of right here at the Hotel Bennett right this minute. And they are kind of clearing, just slowly but surely clearing this area. And not only are they looking this direction, they're also, it looks like they have some officers kind of looking toward Marion Square as well. We're going to walk over here and see what else. I'm here right in front of St. Matthew's Lutheran Church. And you can see a very, very active scene here as law enforcement, it appears to me, is getting ready for that curfew that will be enforced at 11 o'clock. Or I don't even have a clock right now. Maybe it is 11 right this second. Time is flying. It's 10:54. We have about 6 minutes before that curfew. And David, let's take a look at what's going on over here. We've got some protesters just on the other side of these officers, kicking a canister of smoke back toward us. And you have. Okay, all right. Okay, I hear you. Okay, an officer's asking us to kind of back up a little bit. Let's come over here, David, just to give us some safety. Right, he said that they're firing at them and they don't want us to get hit. So I completely understand that and appreciate that. We don't want to get hit either. But so you've got, oh, I can feel the tear gas again. That's a tear gas canister, I think, David. But that's what's going on here at King Street. They are trying to clear people. It is definitely tear gas. Let's back up a little bit more because the wind's blowing our direction. But we're going to get back so we're not, not getting hit with the tear gas quite so much. But as you can see, they're kind of making their way down King Street, and that's basically the scene here in downtown Charleston, right in front of the Hotel Bennett. We'll bring you more information as we get it, as we've been doing all night.
Raymond, before you go, we're seeing a lot of people in the street. Is that law enforcement? Is that protesters? What is that we're seeing there in the middle of the street?
Well, basically, there are still some people in the street, but it has definitely lightened up a good bit. We're going to go back because the tear.
Absolutely. So as Raymond. All right, so as Raymond gets to safety, we're now looking at our other reporter, Brendan, in another part of downtown Charleston, of course.
And you're seeing right there the police presence in downtown Charleston, the corner of King and Calhoun right there. Several stores already damaged. We know that. The curfew is in place from 11 o'clock tonight until 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. So we have 8 hours of curfew. And this is what the police are getting ready for right now. And since I've been sitting here the last 15 or 20 minutes or so, things have definitely quieted down, as you can see, in that area. I mean, obviously, these people who are rioting, who are breaking windows, who are damaging property in this great holy city of ours, they are being pushed up King Street. So we don't know what kind of damage is happening up there as they are moving up there. We saw them as they were moving past Hotel Bennett, taking bricks, throwing them through the windows and just moving up and causing damage as they moved up there. So I'm sure it's still going on, just not where we've seen in our camera.
And part of this chaos, Brendan, earlier when City of Charleston had a news conference, Police Chief Luther Reynolds said that he believes about 50 to 100 rioters are causing the chaos right now, and that they're using the dark web to coordinate where they're planning to attack and what they're planning to do. And so I think that's why there's been a lot of chaos about where they're gathering and where the next move is going to be.
Sure, and that's the scary thing right now, because things have definitely quieted down where we are seeing when it comes to rioters and the people who are doing this damage. The law enforcement is there in full force. As we know, other departments have come and helped out the city of Charleston, as we know, as well. And I'm talking about Berkeley County, places like that have come down to help their brother in blue, help protect the holy city right now from these rioters. As you said, social media can be such a dangerous thing because they can coordinate in different areas for sure. As we continue to look at this video in downtown Charleston, we know this all started mid-afternoon right now, a protest. Black Lives Matters. We're down at Marion Square with others. Peaceful at first, but as we know, in the last 8 hours or so, things have definitely took a turn for the worse as we continue to look at this video from downtown Charleston, Taylor.
And as you've seen in the video, Brendan, I mean, there have been multiple attempts by law enforcement to really push this crowd out of the area, but there are still protesters on scene.
Yeah, sure. Look at them right there, the mass right there. Not yelling as much, maybe not being exuberant as much, but boy, they are still out there right now. And you never know, just it takes one bad apple to spoil the bunch. One person doing something bad right there. This fellow right here, don't know what they're saying right now into the camera. Obviously, our reporters out there. We want them to be safe, and
That's
if they
the main
need to pull
concern.
back, then they can do that. Raymond Owens, Riley Benson, Hannah Powers were out there with parents. I was talking
Absolutely.
with a friend of mine. They had a party scheduled for 9 o'clock at Hall's Chop House, which is right up the road, 2 blocks away from what that video we were just looking at. She got there at 9 o'clock. She said at 9:10 they evacuated Hall's. They told everyone they had to get out because things were so dangerous in that area.
And of course, Brenda, that's been taking place at many restaurants on King Street. Hannah
right.
Powers was at the Ordinary having dinner with her family, just having a normal dinner. Restaurants were booked because a lot of businesses on King Street, like you said, Brendan, had no idea this was going to happen tonight, of course.
Sure.
So she was dining with her family when a brick was thrown into the restaurant at Ordinary, and they had to shelter in place. So a lot of chaos erupting right now in our holy city.
Yeah, no need to tell you to stay away from downtown. Really, you have to, because we know there's a curfew that's been put into place. It starts in 40 seconds from now. What law
Absolutely.
enforcement will do to enforce that curfew is yet to be seen.
That's
I
right.
know in other cities, this is happening all across our country, as we
course.
know, in cities and towns across this country. Sometimes in Minneapolis, where this all started, it hasn't exactly been enforced, the curfew. They just couldn't.
Yeah.
But it looks like they are definitely ready to act on this curfew that will start in just 15 seconds from now.
Absolutely. And Brendan, that curfew is county-wide, all of Charleston County,
Right.
not just the Holy City. So if you are a resident in Charleston County, that curfew that starts at 11 o'clock applies to you.
He has to say about what's happened today in the Holy City.
Essence of public safety, we've been in contact with the county and the other 2 larger cities in the area, Mount Pleasant, North Charleston, and we all feel that for public safety tonight, it would be best for everyone to stay put after 11 o'clock tonight until 7 in the morning.
You just heard from City of Charleston Mayor John Tecklenburg. He actually made that announcement about 3 hours ago, and that's when they decided to enact this curfew, because already around 8 o'clock we started to see these protests that were once peaceful turn into riots, Brendan.
Yeah, we sure have. It's been a long night here in the Holy City. I'm looking at pictures now sent from people I know in downtown Charleston, and a lot of windows that were there just hours ago are no longer there. There's a lot of damage there. Have seen, and I will say this, we talk about looting and people going inside and stealing stuff, which to me is just one of the worst things that anyone could possibly do. I have seen a lot of broken windows here and damaged property. Haven't seen people going in and out of these retail businesses.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I've missed that, but I haven't seen it. Obviously, our cameras aren't everywhere, so we don't know exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe upper King,
Brendan,
lower
you
King,
are
that sort of thing.
exactly right about that. I mean, we have seen a lot of broken windows. We have not seen excessive looting. I did hear reports when News 2's Riley Benson was at the Apple store earlier, of course, and they believe some things were taken. We didn't get that confirmed from police yet, so we are still monitoring that. We have News 2's Riley Benson actually standing by right now. He's live on near Calhoun and King Street. Riley, can you tell us about the scene down there?
Taylor, yeah, I'm standing right outside the Francis Marion Hotel. This is Calhoun off to my left. Again, this line of law enforcement police officers are set up here. This is King Street and Calhoun, the intersection, the corner. They are starting to clear people out, pushing them down Calhoun. They are getting ready, I'm assuming, to begin enforcing this curfew, moving people out of this area. No, thank you. So you can see they're getting ready to move people out of here. It's a very intense scene. There is some sort of gas being dispersed again. Several times there was quite a ruckus. People, all kinds of things, exchanging words with the police officers. They're pushing everybody, including us, out of that area. They're pushing us down Calhoun. So I believe they are beginning to enforce this curfew, Brendan and Taylor.
What's law enforcement doing? Are they warning them? It's 11 o'clock. You got to go. Riley, can you still hear us? Are they saying that? Saying, listen, you're going to get out of here. You're going to get tear gassed.
Yeah, Brendan, they haven't specifically said anything referring to that curfew or it being 11 o'clock. They're just saying, it's time to need to move on. You need to go down this way, or they are going to spray. Didn't specifically say tear gas. They're saying, you need to disperse, or we're going to spray. You can see they just formed this line, and it continues to grow. It continues to have more law enforcement officers and police officers lining up on this intersection. I'm assuming they're going to continue moving down. There is another heavy presence of law enforcement behind our cameraman. You can see a ton of police cars parked there. So I'm assuming they're going to go ahead and continue to clear out Calhoun, Brendan.
Thank you, Riley. And Brendan, like you mentioned earlier, nationwide we have seen a breakout of these riots, protests that really have turned into riots. Yeah. And we have seen curfews set across the nation and police having trouble to manage those curfews. Yeah, so we are...
This certainly isn't about making a point. This is about just damaging stuff and just not going about things the correct way. Let's continue our team coverage. We're going to go back downtown. News 2's Raymond Owens is there live. Raymond, what can you tell us about the curfew? It is now on in Charleston County.
It is now on in Charleston County, and they are slowly but surely clearing this area out. You can see they're just past, kind of next to Virginia's on King, is basically where law enforcement is at this time, and they're making their way down the road here, kind of clearing out the area. If you look back toward Calhoun from where we're standing right here, you can see that it's pretty clear at this point compared to what it has been at any point here or earlier today. But I want to show you real quick, just to show you firsthand exactly what kind of damage is being done out here. Let's take a look at the Hotel Bennett, the entrance here to the Hotel Bennett. I mean, look at the glass. You know, you can see they've bashed in numerous windows here at the Hotel Bennett. Here's another one over here. These two windows bashed in. A number of guests are out here, of course, obviously concerned about, you know, something like this happening. And then if you come around to the other side over here on the left side here, you've got the doors here also bashed in as well by protesters. And that's just one business. We're just here at the Hotel Bennett in downtown Charleston. Let's go over here and we're going to take a look at, watch law enforcement kind of making their way down King Street. They are using tear gas, so we're trying to stay not too close to them because, you know, the tear gas does get kind of strong as you get closer to where they're at. It appears that what they're doing is sort of firing tear gas a little ways down the street and then kind of pushing their way through to where that tear gas is, because if you don't have a mask or something like not a mask, but some sort of a protection against the tear gas, you cannot stay there once it starts flying. It's a very, very strong, and that's what they're doing here as 11 o'clock hits, as that curfew is happening here at 11 o'clock. They're starting to kind of, like I said, push their way down King Street and try and clear out downtown Charleston as much as they can of these protests. Live in downtown, back to you guys.
Raymond, thank you. Definitely a very intense scene right now in downtown Charleston. We have News 2's Riley Benson standing by. We want to continue our team coverage. Riley, what area are you in and what are you seeing?
Well, Taylor, we're still here on Calhoun. The Francis Marion Hotel is right above me to my left. Right now, there is a group of individuals running down Calhoun Street. It appears to be smashing police cars. There's a Charleston City police car right across the street from where we are. We could just hear glass being smashed on that police car. That group took off further down the road, and we heard more smashing. It sounded like glass. Things are getting testy here on Calhoun Street. Again, this line of law enforcement is still standing here. They haven't really moved for the last several minutes, maybe about 10 minutes they've been lined up. There are less people in this area, though. People are working their way down Calhoun. Hold that shot right there. People are working their way down Calhoun. Really, we're the only ones, for the most part, here in this section of Calhoun, with the exception of police and law enforcement, as most people have worked their way down Calhoun, away from the intersection of King and Calhoun and Marion Square. This group of law enforcement is just kind of holding their position right now, just kind of set up. And most people have dispersed. Again, like we were telling you, we could hear glass breaking. It sounded like it came from this police car across the street. It's a Charleston City police car. And then it sounded like we could hear more glass shattering further down the road. We don't know where that came from, as that group of people took off back down the street. But guys, this is really starting to clear out, which is good news. We've seen a lot of tense moments here in this particular area of King Street. But as you can see now behind me, most people have cleared out. There's not a whole lot going on, which is good news, Brendan and Taylor, back in the studio.
Yeah, Riley, it has to be a bit unsettling, though. I mean, when they throw out those tear gas canisters and you hear those explosions, it really ratchets up the tension in that area, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, people are obviously running away. I've even seen somebody pick up one of those canisters and throw them back towards police officers, law enforcement. That was a while ago when we were up by Hotel Bennett. Certainly when you see that, people are scattering. Obviously, we're trying to get as far away from that as possible, as most people are. But Brendan, the most shocking thing to me was to see someone pick up one of those canisters and chuck it back towards law enforcement officers. Again, that was a little while ago.
Absolutely. It's a big showdown we're seeing right now in downtown Charleston between rioters and police.
All right, Riley Benson continues our team coverage down there. We just heard from Ravenel Owens, saw some of the damage at Hotel Bennett, which is right there next to Marion Square. We have seen several restaurants that have had their windows broken And we are continuing to see that. I'm hearing that the restaurant Indigo was hard hit in that area as well. We know Halls was evacuated shortly after 9 o'clock. We want to go back to News 2's Raymond Owens as he was outside the Hotel Bennett showing us the damage there. Raymond, what's new with you? You're right across the street from Virginia's on King Street.
I am. I'm here at King Street and Hudson Street, and you can see law enforcement basically is preparing to it looks like they're preparing to kind of make another move down King Street. They've been doing this. They've been moving a little bit, at a time. Then they would kind of regroup for a moment, and then pushing down the street again. Now, Hudson Street, we have, there's not a lot of people here. Down the street, but you can see glass. They've broken out glass in many of these businesses here. This is the back end of the corner where Hotel Bennett is located. So they're looking at the folks from the folks from the Hotel Bennett have been providing water. They gave us some bottled water, and that was much appreciated. And they're providing water to anybody out here who needs it. It's just amazing to see all of this happening right here in downtown Charleston. Like I said, this area right here at Hudson and King is basically blocked off. There's not nearly the number of protesters here as we were seeing just in the last 20 minutes or so. There's really maybe a few people down here. But and if you look kind of beyond the police officers, let's look kind of down King Street. You can see there are a number of police officers still in the middle of the road. Oh, and there was something was just fired toward the protesters again. They're scattering. That may be another tear gas canister. And again, what we see basically is that there's tear gas thrown, and then they wait a moment, and then they kind of push their way down the street. So I'm assuming that may be what's getting ready to happen here as well. Also, we talked about other law enforcement agencies out here. I saw a couple more Berkeley County deputies. We've got Mount Pleasant police officers right here with City of Charleston. I know there's Charleston County. Pretty much it's all hands on deck with law enforcement, I would imagine, trying to alleviate this situation in downtown Charleston. And again, they just fired down King Street. It does look like that crowd that was there just a minute ago has started to move away from where they're at, probably because of that tear gas. Once that tear gas hits you, you have to move. There's no option of staying. It pretty much takes over all of your senses, and the only thing you can think about is getting out of the tear gas. So that's pretty much what's going on here right now. Like I said, there really are not a lot of protesters here right where I'm at this moment. But you do have a number of police cars here waiting kind of behind this group of law enforcement. I'm sure they're getting ready to kind of continue moving down and clear out more of this area as we have hit that curfew. So 11 o'clock, people are supposed to not be out at this point in Charleston County. So that's just kind of what we're seeing here at King and Hudson Street in downtown Charleston. We're going to continue with this and bring you the very latest as we see it happening in Charleston. Live in downtown Charleston, I'm Raymond Owens. Back to you.
Thank you. Before you go, there's so many iconic storefronts on King Street as well as restaurants. I think a lot of business owners are going to show up to work tomorrow surprised by the conditions. Are you seeing a lot of broken glass, a lot of shattered storefronts?
Raymond is gone right now, but we will get back to Raymond Owens, continue that team coverage. We're hoping that we can talk to some people down there, maybe some property owners as well, to see exactly, business owners see exactly the damage that they are seeing there, because we are getting reports. I am getting texts from friends and people I know, acquaintances and sources, saying that Upper King Street is just as bad as what we're seeing in that area where all the law enforcement is. So where that law enforcement isn't, you kind of shudder to think about maybe some of the damage that's going on there. Because the rioters aren't there where we are right now, but they're somewhere.
Yes.
They may have been pushed out of that area, but they've been pushed into a different area as well.
And just like you mentioned, that's what Police Chief Luther Reynolds said earlier today. It's been hard for them them to track where these rioters are going to make their next move, because they've been posting through social media, through the dark web, which is hard to track. But we do have News 2's Hannah Powers standing by. Hannah's been with us throughout the night. She was dining in a restaurant with her parents on King Street. That restaurant is called The Ordinary. It's a few blocks away from Marion Square when a rioter threw a brick in the window. The brick actually hit someone that was dining in the restaurant. That person is okay. Hannah, we want to check back in with you for any updates you have. Have you made it to safety?
Hi, Taylor. Well, I heard you actually asking Raymond about damaged storefronts, and I can go ahead and give you an update on that. Every storefront I saw was damaged. Glass was broken, signs vandalized, profanity, all of those things. I will tell you, myself and my parents were the last to leave the restaurant, and the waitstaff helped us escape through an alley, and then we were able to get my parents back to their hotel. And I will tell you, most of the roads were shut down. Law enforcement was very helpful, helping me get them to safety again with this curfew and trying to avoid some of these most dangerous areas. When I left the restaurant, they told me they were going to leave the lights on because they said other friends in the restaurant industry that had turned their lights off, then they had sort of opened themselves up to more vandalism. Very, very sad to see some of these iconic Charleston restaurants and eateries that we so love here in the Low Country to be vandalized in such a way. Very, very hard to see. I mean, my mother and father, who are not from here, were very, very disappointed to see that, because it really does shock you. Again, we were able to get out through the alley of the restaurant, so we didn't have to go out onto King Street. When we left, they had barricaded the door with the dining room tables, and they had closed all the blinds, locked the doors, and they quickly made sure everyone got out safely. The waitstaff at the Ordinary did an amazing job communicating with all the guests and making sure everybody was safe and taken care of. But again, things escalated so quickly. We were enjoying a nice dinner, and then all of a sudden that brick being thrown through the window, hurting that woman, and things just really, really escalating from there.
I can, in agreement with you, Brendan, as well. Of course, everyone watching at home, it's very hard to see the Low Country in treated this way, and by these 50 to 100 rioters that police say were left in downtown Charleston. Of course, what we experienced earlier, Brendan, was around 2 o'clock. Several hundred protesters had a peaceful protest in Marion Square, and City of Charleston Mayor John Tecklenburg, as well as Police Chief Luther Reynolds, did acknowledge the peaceful protesters. However, it quickly escalated, took a more chaotic turn, and it turned into riots here later this evening, Brendan.
A friend of mine at another restaurant on King Street, windows smashed, fire was thrown. That's what we are hearing right now. And the servers, the people who work there, terrified, hiding in the back, not expecting this possibly, because we've never had this before. We go back to our days at the Charleston church shooting, where we certainly thought something like this could happen, but it didn't. And now it is happening as a result of what we saw in Minneapolis just days ago. But we are hearing that the restaurant owners are all terrified, didn't expect it. About 9 o'clock is when things really started to escalate, is what I'm hearing from my friends who are down on Upper King Street, enjoying places such as Halls, Indigo, things like that. And all of a sudden the windows just started to be broken, and poor Hannah Powers out with her parents trying to enjoy a nice night out and a nice meal, and then something like that happens. Certainly took a turn for the worse here in the Holy City. Protesters seemingly peaceful in the afternoon, anything but tonight, as it has turned into rioters destroying sections of the Holy City.
Yeah, Brendan, really wreaking havoc. I mean, we've shown you guys multiple reports of businesses with their windows broken. We showed you the Apple Store. We don't have a clip of that right now. Right now, you're taking a live look near the Marion Square area, but the Apple Store on King Street, windows completely shattered. Of course, this is the story for a lot of businesses on King Street. So we are taking a live look. You can see law enforcement officers. There's multiple agencies downtown right now. We're told Berkeley County Sheriff's deputies are assisting the City of Charleston. There are other agencies there as well, as they try and regain control of this area and push people out. Of course, we know there is a county-wide curfew in effect right now until 7 a.m., but we've still seen some unrest downtown.
We sure have, and things are quieted down, at least from our aspect right here as we are looking. We're at the Marion Square area, King Street there, at Francis Marion Hotel, Calhoun Street, kind of like the center for where all this happened, where all the law enforcement is, as we've seen with Raymond Owens and we've seen with Riley Benson. The law enforcement has made their way up King Street, past the church a little bit, past Hotel Bennett. We just saw them about 5 minutes ago throw another canister of tear gas. That is not in our view, but that's fine because we want our reporters to be safe and stay safe. And as we continue to look at this video, we're seeing law enforcement there continuing with the heavy presence. Obviously a sad day for this city as they try to protect storefronts and property owners from any additional damage that we've already seen.
Absolutely, Brendan. And actually what you're looking at right now, Raymond is actually standing by right at this area. So we do want to continue our team coverage and toss live to News 2's Raymond Owens. He's going to give us a little bit of a look at what's happening and kind of describe what he's seeing. Raymond, are you standing by? As we wait for Raymond.
I am. I'm actually here in the middle of King Street, right here in front of Hotel Bennett. And basically, it's this area, basically right there next to Marion Square. They have pretty much cleared this area out completely. There are a few people here and there, but for the most part, I'm behind where the police law enforcement line is, right there kind of on the end of that block where Hotel Bennett is. And it's pretty much cleared out. This area does not have nearly the number of protesters that it had earlier this evening. And you can basically see we're kind of on the back side of the police line, kind of looking back down King Street from where we're at. You can see that the police are basically preparing to kind of make a next move down Hudson Street here on King Street. All of these businesses, we've talked about the windows being busted out. The Hotel Bennett, all of those windows of the Hotel Bennett pretty much are busted out. All of those businesses on the right side, right here in that kind of that block with Hotel Bennett, their windows are all busted out. There's windows busted out across the street here at the cigar shop that we showed you a little while ago. And then up and down King Street, down past Calhoun, we understand there's damage there, of course, like at the Apple store. So there's a lot of damage here in the area. We also have, looks like we have some more tear gas being fired and smoke. You can see kind of down the street here, looking down toward the law enforcement line. You can see a police officer, a police vehicle driving by right now. A couple of them driving down the road here on the back side of this group of law enforcement that are kind of pushing their way through downtown Charleston, trying to slowly kind of push this the protesters, if you will, kind of back. And you can actually see on the other side of where we're standing, kind of further down King Street, there are fire trucks and other vehicles on that end as well. So it looks like they're kind of centering this part of King Street and kind of bringing everyone together to kind of get out of that area, I suppose, over the next few minutes here, because like we've been saying, the curfew went into effect at 11 o'clock. So as of right now, no one is supposed to be out and about in downtown Charleston or in Charleston County for that matter. Live in downtown Charleston on King Street, I'm Raymond Owens. Back to you guys in the studio.
Definitely stay safe out there. I do want to read a report that I just received a text from someone in the Low Country, and it was an image of West Elm Furniture Store on King Street. Rioters have set fire inside that store. Wow. So just so you can get a gauge of where that store is, it is a few doors down from the iconic Callie's Biscuits, and so that's actually a few blocks from where Raymond is right now. That just goes to show that the rioters that were concentrated in that Marion Square area are now working their way up King Street, Brendan.
Yeah, we have reports of a fire up there. As you say, you don't see it from our video, but that's what we are hearing. We, of course, engage in all our social media pages, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, checking out videos from there as well. Just got video, received that from the person who actually threw that rock through the window of the Apple store in Lower King Street there and broke that window there. As we know, a lot of damage has been done to the Apple store as well. Makes you wonder, Taylor, down the road, what law enforcement is going to do. Are they going to be looking at this video? Are they going to be trying to identify the people who have done this and actually hold their feet to the flames and prosecute them for what they are doing here in the Holy City tonight?
Absolutely, Brendan, and that is exactly what the police chief of City of Charleston said earlier today. I mean, they said they will be in downtown Charleston all night long, and they are ready to make arrests for anyone that is exhibiting this behavior. Of course, at this point, we do not know how many arrests have been made. I mean, that is something we're going to have to check in with them about, but definitely so many different incidents of crime happening right now in the Holy City.
And this is the second report. We just talked about it a minute ago. I am getting another friend telling me that West Elm Furniture is on fire. So that's the second report that we have had of that. We've also seen pictures of that. We are hoping the law enforcement is able to move quickly enough and disperse the rioters, and not any more protesters, but rioters, and getting them out of the area where they can actually get that fire, if there is a fire there at West Elm Furniture, under control, getting everyone out safely if anyone is there, hopefully, and probably they aren't, but we really hope that we get this situation under control on Upper King Street in downtown Charleston.
Absolutely, Brendan. And as we learn about that and hear more official reports about any fires, we will, of course, bring that information to you live on air. We are going to check in with Raymond Owens right now, standing by live at Marion Square. Raymond? I do see a lot of tear gas in the air right now.
Yeah, actually, law enforcement has turned around. You can see they are now headed back down the street from where I'm at. Law enforcement is now walking down the street. They fired some either smoke or tear gas. I don't feel like I can feel the tear gas in my eyes like I could earlier right this minute. They're actually headed back down this direction. A number of protesters did kind of just show up, not a whole lot, but there were a number of them that kind of started showing up on this end, and then they started firing off something toward them and turned around heading this direction back down King Street, where now they're now passing the Hotel Bennett, and you can hear them as they walk down the street. We're just watching this live right now. There's really nobody at beyond back over toward Calhoun. I don't really see anybody else, any other protesters in front of them at this point, but they are basically clearing the street. And we've got to move back too, we're being told. So let's go. Okay, we're all going back. I guess we're going together. So, so wait a minute. Now they said we're stopping here, or they're stopping. So that's what's going on here right now. I just wanted to send it back to you guys. It's a very fluid situation. Things happening minute by minute, and we're trying to bring you as much of it as we possibly can. Back to you in the studio.
Okay, Raymond, obviously safety first for our crews out there. Raymond Owens, Riley Benson, staying back with law enforcement as more tear gas has been dispersed. I just did get a picture from a viewer, a friend of ours of Channel 2, showing a fire inside a building on King Street, on Upper King Street. I've been down there several times. I can't make out what building it is, but I am looking at a fire inside a building on King Street right now.
Absolutely.
So that's confirmation from a very trusted source here at News 2 that there is some problems going on Upper King Street tonight.
And Brendan, that's certainly not the only incident that has happened to innocent businesses in our holy city. I mean, earlier, like we mentioned, Riley Benson was right outside of the Apple Store. You're actually taking not a live look, excuse me, you're taking a look at video from earlier of the Apple Store. We are told that that window was shattered. People barged through that door. We have not gotten it confirmed what was looted from the store, if things were looted, but our reporter on scene did tell us that it appeared that things were taken from the Apple Store, Brendan.
Yeah, if you can look inside, usually on the shelves. I don't know if the Apple employees were able to take those products off the shelves before all this started to happen, but looks like the shelves inside the Apple Store are bare. Such a sad thing to see right there. As second Sunday on King Street, you go down there, you enjoy so much of what the Holy City has to offer on King Street and Lower King, but it has been targeted by these people. It's a sad day in the Holy City as these people who have done all this damage to the property, and it really just hurt how people feels about Charleston. So, okay, and we know earlier tonight around 6:30, this is what happened here. The protesters did leave that area, Taylor.
That's right, Brendan.
And they headed to I-26, the Ravenel Bridge. From what we hear, they are trying to block traffic on the Ravenel Bridge, but were not successful. Although another friend of mine who was trying to go to West Ashford from Mount Pleasant, we were told, he came up to the Ravenel Bridge. They said, nope, you're not going over it. Turn around. This bridge is closed.
That's exactly right, Brendan. This was exactly like you said, around the 6 o'clock, between 6 and 7 o'clock. And this was the first time we really saw those protests start to take a turn, because like I said earlier, they were pretty peaceful. A statue was vandalized in downtown Charleston. Besides that, they were mostly peaceful. This is when it started to take a turn. Like you said, Brendan, the protesters started to leave downtown Charleston, walk up the I-26 ramp, and start to physically cross the Ravenel Bridge, only they were not on the sidewalk. They were walking where the motorists should be driving. Because of this, law enforcement on the City of Charleston side, as well as the Mount Pleasant side on the other side of the bridge, really had to take over this situation and close the bridge for a while, which caused a lot of backup in the area.
And talking about it to a business owner from King Street, tells me that was actually bad for him, because then the protesters kind of did a U-turn and came back in that area and continued to do damage down there. So you don't want them on the Ravenel Bridge doing what they are doing there, but you also don't want them down there. And I did just get a picture also that shows, that is confirmed, that the West Elm Furniture, there is a fire in there. Looks like to the furniture itself, there is a fire at West Elm Furniture on King Street. Sad thing to see.
Of course, and as we learn updates about that, we will be bringing that to you tonight, but even online at counton2.com. But since we don't have updates on that quite quite yet from law enforcement. We are going to continue our team coverage with News 2's Riley Benson, who's standing by in downtown Charleston still. Riley, what are the conditions downtown right now?
Taylor, well, a lot of people have cleared out of this area, and I'm going to go ahead and take my mask off. A lot of people have cleared out of this area. If you can see over my shoulder, this is SWAT. So SWAT's set up right here, and then the law enforcement is still set up right here on the corner of Calhoun and King. I'm at Francis Marion Hotel. Now, as Raymond was telling you, that line of law enforcement had gone down past Hotel Bennett. They had now turned around, and they've gone back up King Street towards Apple. So they are, obviously trying to clear out as many people as they can. Again, this is SWAT, so law enforcement, this is probably the heaviest seen a presence we've seen in quite some time on this intersection, Calhoun and King. They had worked their way down, now they're back. They really cleared this area out. We did just have some tear gas, 5-10 minutes ago, but really now most people have left this area. There are a few tricklers, that are coming off of King. They're sending them down Calhoun past us. And you can hear some activity is going on the other side of the SWAT truck. Sounds like it's coming somewhere towards CVS or Walgreens, excuse me, here on King Street. But really, most people have cleared out of this area, which is good news. But really, a heavy presence of law enforcement, police officers over my shoulder here on the corner of King and Calhoun Street. Taylor and Brendan.
And continuing our team coverage, he is down with law enforcement. You can see right there at King and Calhoun, and I'm hoping this curfew,
Absolutely.
I'm hoping law enforcement with their tear gas and trying to disperse this crowd, we all hope for the sake of the Holy City and that area down there on King Street that people are dispersing, people are heading home, people aren't going to do any more damage. But it's 11:30. The curfew's been in place for 30 minutes. We're talking about fires in Upper King at furniture stores and other stores there. So it's probably going to be a long night for law enforcement and for all of us here in the Low Country.
Brendan, and we're going to continue to monitor it. Sure. Unfortunately, I can't say that it sounds like it's calming down completely, and that's evident in our coverage. So we are going to continue our team coverage. But just a recap of kind of what has happened today. I mean, Brendan, when I came in earlier today around 2 o'clock, there were several hundred people having a peaceful protest in downtown Charleston, but that obviously escalated. That's what we're looking at now.
Yeah, and these are heavily, these guys mean business right here.
Absolutely.
When there's a curfew in place and members of SWAT are in place, that means they're trying to get these people off the streets and back at home. We've seen about 10 minutes ago, Raymond Owens was a little further up, right past the Hotel Bennett by Virginia's on King, that line of law enforcement, which has since moved back, was up there, and they did disperse another tear gas canister to try and get these people out of the vicinity. And they are out of this vicinity, Taylor, as we've told you, but they went somewhere, and a lot of them didn't go home, and a lot of them are still hell-bent on doing destruction to property and trying to wreak as much havoc as they can in this area, and they're going to do that until law enforcement gets out there, which they are going to do eventually, to try and stop the damage, stop the mayhem, and stop the havoc that these few people are creating here on King Street and in downtown Charleston.
And Brendan, that is the exact reason there is a curfew right now in all of Charleston County. It's not just to protect these businesses, but it's also to protect you at home. I mean, the City of Charleston Police has said early on in the night they don't want people in downtown Charleston. They want people to avoid this area because it's just so unpredicted where these rioters are going to go next. And like you mentioned, Brendan, it does appear that they have cleared out of Marion Square because of the tear gas used by law enforcement. You're looking right now at SWAT in downtown Charleston on scene. But reports we've been hearing of fires in other parts of King Street, it does appear that the rioters have simply moved to a new location, and that's why we are continuing to monitor this.
Yeah, we sure are, and this is the video that we have taken. This is live right now. It is 11:30, as we know that curfew is in effect. You can see still people are standing around, not in a working capacity. Some onlookers trying to see what they can. There you can see that's Raymond Owens and our other crew in the scene up there. But it continues until 7 a.m., this curfew, and we will continue to be here covering for you. We're hoping that the worst of it is behind us.
Absolutely.
Fingers crossed. Don't know if that is true, but we do know that I think Police Chief Luther Reynolds, I think he called these people domestic terrorists.
That is what he said.
The City of Charleston, that's what the police chief said. And I think that's an accurate description.
I do too, Brendan.
Because I got no problem with someone protesting. With what happened a couple of days ago, I have no problem people speaking their mind, their displeasure, and wanting change. But this isn't the way to get it, that's for sure.
Absolutely, and that is exactly what the police police chief said, as well as Mayor John Tecklenburg. They stand in solidarity with the peaceful protest because of what happened in Minneapolis. Of course, you should know what's going on by now, but if you're just tuning in, of course, what happened earlier today is we had several hundred peaceful protesters march up and down King Street, standing in solidarity with people around the nation for the death of George Floyd, an unarmed African-American man that in Minneapolis, earlier on Monday at the hands of law enforcement. So what happened is a peaceful march of about several hundred people kind of dispersed for a moment and then reconvened, and it turned chaotic and pretty aggressive. You're looking live at what's going on in downtown Charleston right now.
And Taylor, we're looking at all our social media
Of course.
facilities, Twitter. We're seeing so much video and so many pictures come in Twitter, our Instagram account. If you want to follow us live on our website too, go to counton2.com, search WCBD, put our app on your phone. But the police chief also added it will be a sad morning when the damage can be seen from the protesters. And actually, this is far from being over.
Absolutely.
And he didn't say that just minutes ago. He said that over an hour ago, that it's far from over. And that's sad to hear that as well, because we know it's the nighttime is out there beyond the lights, and people continue to do this damage. We're hoping law enforcement can get their arms around it and can stop it as peacefully as possible. We'll see. Time will tell, doesn't it always?
Absolutely, Brendan. And I mean, one thing that they already are calling for, which is City of Charleston, Charleston County, are already calling for citizens to help in the cleanup tomorrow. And I mean, that just goes to show that they already are anticipating quite a cleanup for the Holy City. So it was kind of an unofficial call for citizens to help at 8 a.m. tomorrow with the cleanup. But of course, the main concern for the citizens right now is to really stay indoors right now, because that curfew is in effect until 7 a.m.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, exactly, and it is. And, you know, we're talking about cleanup. We have to still talk about damage. What will there be to clean up? I mean, if they're setting a fire to a furniture store, we know how combustible a furniture store can be. So we know the fire department hopefully can get in there, and hopefully law enforcement get around there and protect the area while the fire department can do their job. We are hoping that is the case, as it is about about 4 or 5 blocks up from where we are on Upper King Street right now. The restaurants that have been damaged, the halls where a friend of mine called in and said she was evacuated, that is just a block and a half up the road, right up there where law enforcement is, and that place was heavily damaged as well. So we're going to continue to follow this. We're hoping to hear from people about their experiences on the road. That skateboarder out there shouldn't be there. Obviously, there's a curfew in place. Just adds to the problem when people are out there, the onlookers, the people who aren't doing it. If you're just out there just looking around and you're curious, you don't need to be. You can just go home. Law enforcement's trying to do their job, trying to get control of everything that's going on right now. This curfew's been in effect for 36 minutes, and it will be in effect until 7 a.m. You can see the streets are empty, visibly different than what we saw just a few hours ago, as tensions were running pretty high. Rioters and law enforcement face to face, and the rioters were not talking nicely to law enforcement, causing a lot of damage. It all started around 3 o'clock this afternoon, peacefully, I might add, in Marion Square, but things have gone downhill once the sun set. Things started to get a little disappointing, a little crazy out there on King Street, and we are continuing to look live right now in that area, and thankfully things have quieted down there. But where else?
Yeah, and that is the question, Brendan. I think as law enforcement tries to monitor all areas of downtown Charleston, we are waiting to see if we're going to hear more reports of these rioters kind of storming other areas. We certainly hope not, of course. I do want to read, as you take a live look at downtown Charleston, I want to read a statement that we just got from the City of Charleston Mayor John Tecklenburg. He just issued a statement just into our newsroom moments ago, and it does say, quote, "The murder of George Floyd has rightly caused outrage here and across the country. And while we as Charlestonians strongly support all of the good men and women who are peacefully and lawfully protesting that terrible crime, we cannot and will not condone acts of violence and vandalism in our city. Tonight, our police will work to contain the relatively small number of bad actors who are doing this damage. And tomorrow morning, Charlestonians of every race and station will come together to reject all forms of violence and injustice and to affirm once again that ours is a city united in peace, end quote. And that was directly from Mayor John Tecklenburg. Of course, Brendan, you know, what Mayor John Tecklenburg is talking about truly rings true of the aftermath of the terrible tragedy at Mother Emanuel. I mean, that was a different response than what we're seeing right now, right, Brendan?
No, 100% different. That was, what, 5 years ago, June in 2015. I remember the night like it was yesterday, a hot, humid night, kind of like tonight, probably 90 degrees of the humidity as we were out there all throughout the night. And, you know, there was a chance things could escalate, and they did somewhat in the following days after all this. As we know, the statement of that person who was in the courtroom and said they forgave Dylan Roof early on after he had just been arrested, did a lot to quell what could have happened in Charleston as we know it. We were very proud at that moment that things didn't escalate, and what happened tonight, we're not too proud of that. It's a black eye for the Holy City and what some people have done to this beautiful city and continue to do out of the range of our cameras.
And one thing the police chief in the city of Charleston mentioned is they were trying to determine if these rioters that we're seeing tonight are even from the Low Country. That is something that they are trying to determine, and we're hoping to learn more about that tomorrow. Of course, you're taking a live look. It appears that a gas can or some smoke was thrown in, and it was not thrown by law enforcement. That seems to be a rioter, and you're taking a look at that.
We may be throwing it back. Yeah, we're not quite sure. As you're seeing what we are seeing right there. We are hearing a siren right now. This person on a skateboard, with a skateboard, obviously has a problem with something. As we saw a smoke canister go across the ground. He's upset. Too bad. You shouldn't be out there. It's 11:30. There's a curfew. Go home.
And really, Brendan, I mean, we've seen people disperse from this area right here near Marion Square. So it is interesting that that individual and some people are walking back towards that area, because we did see them kind of disperse from that area. Now, Raymond is standing by. We're hoping to go to him soon so we can get another update. Oh, there he is. Raymond.
Yes, I'm right outside the Francis Marion Hotel. I'm good right now, thank you. I'm right next to the Francis Marion Hotel, excuse me. We just had some tear gas thrown in this area. If you look down the street here, this is Calhoun Street. King Street's kind of right behind us. You've got the College of Charleston bookstore on the right side to give you an idea of where we're located. These individuals are walking up here toward the SWAT truck, and they are firing. See here, they're firing non-lethal. They're actually firing at this individual, this man right now. They've been doing this to people who are coming from about that distance or closer. If they get that close, not only are they firing that, but then as you hear that sound, that's a high piercing sound. They're using that also to kind of keep people away from here. And that is a loud piercing sound designed specifically to do what they're trying to do here. As you can see, as they do the non-lethal firing of the non-lethal shots, the people are backing up. It looks like most of them are, at least. There's a couple of police cars we showed you earlier tonight, I think, that have been bashed out. Their windows, back of the windows, side windows have been bashed out of those police cars. And you can see, law enforcement vehicles back here as well. But there's also a few protesters within that crowd of vehicles that you're looking at right here behind us, kind of turning around, looking back toward King Street. This is what it looks like here. We've got the SWAT vehicle. We've got the line of law enforcement that we've seen throughout the day here at King Street, this time kind of looking down Calhoun. Excuse me. And you can see, actually, you can see some of the marks here in the ground. David, I don't know if you want to look over here. You can see where the non-lethal firings, that's what it kind of looks like, as it hits the ground or hits people who are being fired at. And this gentleman's starting to walk back up here again, it looks like. And I don't know if they definitely have somebody up in the top of that SWAT vehicle preparing to fire if needed. So they are one by one, literally at this point, kind of clearing out this area of downtown Charleston. This guy's holding his hands up, he's dropped the skateboard, and excuse me, you can definitely still feel a little bit of the tear gas in the air here right now. Not as strong as it was just a minute ago, but they are continuing this effort of trying to rid downtown of the protests in this area and try to enforce really that curfew that began at 11 o'clock and continues through 7 o'clock tomorrow morning throughout Charleston County. So it is a very active. This lady right here, right where we're standing, she's being fired at. She's saying she's trying to go. I don't know what's going on here, but she just walked in here. They did fire at her a couple of times. But anyway, that's, as you can see, there's a lot. They're kind of trying to clear this section up here. We've got the loud piercing sound they're using again. And we've got some people trying to move their way back up Calhoun Street toward where we're at. But they are staying at least a little bit of a distance back compared to what we were seeing here just a few minutes ago. But this is extraordinarily a changing moment-by-moment situation here in downtown Charleston. There's definitely not the large crowds that we are seeing, at least like from what I'm looking at back here. This is not the, upwards of possibly 1,000 people or more that we might have seen earlier. But there are definitely still people here who are protesting and who are being aggressive toward law enforcement in some way, shape, or form, like this individual you saw here in the road just a minute ago. That's kind of what's going on here on Calhoun Street in downtown Charleston. I'm Raymond Owens. Back to you.
Raymond Owens certainly struggling there, doing a great job there with everything that's going on. We know he's had to deal with the tear gas and the pepper spray as well, and he's trying to fight through that to give us a better idea of what exactly is going down, what he's seeing down there. And we are also getting in so much video, Taylor, and pictures of some of the things that have gone on earlier down there, possible gunshots by halls. I'm just looking at the video, and I'm not saying there were definitely gunshots. I'm saying there were reports of possible gunshots in or around Hall's Chop House, the restaurant up there. Certainly the video I'm seeing, people dispersed quickly after hearing those. We know there are different sounds to the canisters of tear gas being thrown out of a gun and things like that. But
you're onto it, Brendan. I mean, we've heard multiple reports from viewers of incidents like this, and I mean, we've seen police cars with their windows bashed. I mean, these are just things we've seen throughout the day. We've seen Confederate statues around the city, one in particular in White Point Gardens, vandalized. So we've just seen a lot of different isolated incidents. Of course, it all coming to like a point here in the Marion Square area, King Street area tonight. So you're still taking a look. It appears that SWAT is now moving down King Street. They're still trying to regain control, even though this curfew, Brendan, has been in effect for nearly 45 minutes. Yep. People still in downtown Charleston.
Which we saw that guy there with the skateboard acting like a fool. We saw different people walking around in that area as well. But law enforcement definitely has control of that area right there. Kind of scared to think what we're going to see when the sun comes up tomorrow morning, because we're going to see probably the extent of the damage that we are not seeing right now, just for the safety of our crews who are hanging out with law enforcement or by law enforcement to be protected in that area as well. As we continue to look at this curfew that's in effect in Charleston and Charleston County. Obviously, Charleston County spans a very large portion of the Low Country. That curfew mainly in effect for downtown Charleston. That's where we've seen most of the riots. It did spread out a little bit to 26 and the Ravenel Bridge, but for the most part has been contained to this area of downtown Charleston.
And Brendan, I do want to make note of something. I mean, we are seeing, of course, a lot of rioters. We're, of course, seeing law enforcement and SWAT, but we just got a message to our newsroom from a viewer drawing our attention to the fact that there's still employees inside restaurants right now on King Street that are kind of sheltering in place. And I mean, and I think that's because a lot of people went to work today and opened up businesses not expecting this to happen.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure of what the protocol is right now if they are still in that restaurant, because there is a curfew. I'm sure they'd be given a pass if they are trying to get home at this hour right now if they've been sheltered in place. But I certainly wouldn't want to leave the restaurant with everything that was going on outside during that time a couple of hours ago. And now it might be a little more safe if you are able to leave. I'm not saying to do that, but for people who've been sheltered in place and scared, my heart goes out for you. I'm sorry it's happened. I just want you to stay safe, and if that means staying in the restaurant overnight just to stay safe, then you may have to do that as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just looking, monitoring the conditions, peeking out the window, kind of seeing what's going on. And as you can see, I mean, it's still a very active scene in downtown Charleston as law enforcement officers just kind of make their way around the streets. What we know from earlier is they were making making announcements to people that were rioters that were crowded around Marion Square saying, leave or we're going to gas. And that is exactly what happened. Our reporters even having to kind of navigate around that tear gas so they can bring us reports and, of course, focus on their safety as well. So we are continuing to monitor this. We've got teams in downtown Charleston. We're continuing to monitor all the updates into our newsroom. And I mean, the police chief earlier today believes that this was a group of about 50 or 100 that caused these riots and made a really, really big mess in the Holy City.
And I know I've sent some pictures to the newsroom. I'm hoping that we can get those edited and put up so we can see during this newscast of some of the damage we've seen on Upper King, such as fires and things like that. This possible gunshots in or around Hall's Chop House, the restaurant there on Upper King as well. Just got sent a second video on that, which I have sent up to the newsroom. Hopefully we can possibly get that edited and out for you to see. If you don't see it live on air, just go to our website, counton2.com, or our Twitter page, just search WCBD. Hopefully you can see additional coverage there for you.
And I know that city officials as well as Charleston County Council and Charleston County officials are just really trying to navigate what to do next and how to approach this. I know that one thing that was discussed earlier today is emergency management for Charleston County was trying to decide whether they should call in the National Guard. I mean, this is something that they were talking about. At this point, we have not heard that call made. That is not something that is official, but that is something they were throwing around as things continue to escalate here in downtown Charleston.
You continue to look live right now in the area of King and Calhoun. Right there across the street is the pharmacy right there. Behind our camera is the Francis Marion Hotel. You can still see people out there. Some are in the working capacity, some are not. Law enforcement working to get people out of that area, as you've seen. Not a real sense of urgency from the people, the law enforcement that are hanging back. They did make a move about 46 minutes ago, about maybe more than an hour ago. They moved up Upper King a little bit, dispersed some tear gas canisters right past Virginia's on King, that area, right past Hotel Bennett, which we saw.
We saw the damage.
Sustained so much damage right there with broken windows.
Just so sad to see our newest hotel. I mean, just definitely hard to see here.
And a lot of owners, business owners are disappointed down there. A lot of people, of course, we have a reputation for not doing this sort of thing here in Charleston, but it certainly happened tonight, and maybe some retailers were down there not thinking it was going to be happening, weren't told it was happening, and the damage they sustained to their buildings, they'll be cleaning up that mess for quite some time.
It's very shocking,
it sure
Brendan.
is.
Very, very shocking. And so we're just continuing to monitor everything that's going on. Of course, right now that curfew is in effect, and it's in effect for all of Charleston County, not just downtown Charleston.
Yeah, as needed. Obviously, downtown Charleston is the focal point right there as we go back and looking live right there at King and Calhoun of all the law enforcement down there. Not dispersing any more tear gas or anything like that, but the SWAT team is there, the tactical team right there, trying to quell any problems. And once again, what you're seeing here is not probably what's going on in different areas of downtown Charleston, because those rioters who were there and were very upset and very vocal aren't there anymore, but they are somewhere. Our hope is that they went home or went back to wherever they came from if they weren't from here in Charleston, and not causing any more damage. I don't know if that's wishful thinking or not. But
but I think that's what everyone
isn't happening right now, as we've seen different pictures of a building, the West Elm Furniture Store in Upper King. We saw definitely a fire inside. That can be confirmed to some of the furniture inside that store.
Yeah, and Brendan, I mean, the police chief addressed some of the vandalism that happened earlier today. I mean, he said that these rioters took baseball bats and they broke store windows along King Street, which you've obviously seen. They've thrown water bottles at police officers. They've picking up those gas cans thrown by law enforcement officers and thrown them right back. I mean, it has just been a lot of chaos that we've been seeing in the Holy City. And I mean, the police chief, he said it perfectly. He called these individuals domestic terrorists. I mean, this is not something we're used to seeing here in Charleston, a city that, you know, has claimed the word Charleston strong after incidents like what happened in Minneapolis. So, I mean, it's definitely something we're continuing to monitor. Right now, as you can see, you're taking a live look at Marion Square. This is this King Street and Calhoun?
Yeah,
yes,
right there across from we're right there behind the camera shot. Right there is the Francis Marion Hotel. You are down to the right is King Street that you're looking at right down there. Usually very festive time, usually a good time. You go down there and shop. Me and my daughter go down there all the time and shop. Second Sunday on King Street, a wonderful place to be day in and day out, but not tonight as a result of what happened. Be interesting to see, Taylor, whether there will be any numbers as far as injuries, which we haven't heard much about, or any arrests. Don't know about any arrests tonight. Don't know if there will be arrests in the future, as law enforcement can possibly look at any video and the pictures. I mean, these people are breaking windows. You are on camera. So we'll see if law enforcement can get that. We're going to continue our team coverage, going back down to Raymond Owens, who is working down there. Raymond, what can you tell us?
Right now we're here at the corner of King Street and Calhoun, and as you can see, law enforcement kind of blocking off the roads in different directions, pretty much all directions here at King Street and Calhoun. I do want to I have a quick interview here with you. Leslie Lyles, a former News 2 anchor, you were downtown eating. Tell me about what you've seen during this the protest.
Well, not as much as you, obviously. So I was coming across the Curfew Bridge to have some supper downtown and obviously aware of a certain amount of what was going on, and that's when the bridge was blocked off. So I contacted Rob Fowler to say, hey, if something's going on, let me know. And we were having some dinner on Society Street, and we were a couple stories up, and then the staff came and said we all needed to move to the back of the restaurant because there were some incidents, out on King Street. And then, of course, we later learned about some things that may have happened at the Apple store and those kinds of things that you're more aware of than I am. And it's just escalated. It's hot, like it is everywhere else. But I think hopefully people are trying to be respectful, but it seems like there may have been a bit of looting. And then, everybody is, you can see that they're tense. They're shooting these pellets at you, and they're filled with dust. But it's dark.
Right, yeah, talking
and
about that.
There's
You were
a
walking
curfew.
up the street and those pellets are...
Right, it's true, but I wasn't supposed to be walking up the street. It's past a curfew. I understand there's a curfew now, so we're past the curfew, so I shouldn't have been doing that.
Right.
So I think it's fair game, so not to escalate any thought process there. Everybody's just doing the best we can, but I'll say this is the most beautiful town in America and filled with the best people in America, in my personal opinion. And thank you. And the point is this: we have something to say. Let's say it nicely. This is what we do here. We say it nicely, and we don't need to have anybody getting hurt. We don't need any poor reflection on us as a community. If we abide by the protocols and we protest properly, we'll be good. Let's put up some drones tomorrow and show peaceful, great protests in the fashion of Martin Luther King. That's the way it's done. When we burn things and we break things, I don't know that much good comes from it. And it's arguable that some change happened a couple of days ago. Some arrests were made when things got heated, but progress has been made. So hopefully we can just stay the course and we won't have to fear each other. We can work together. So yes, I was in a restaurant, we had to dim the lights. That's a weird thing, right? Because people are afraid. Let's not be afraid. Let's protest and let's work together. That's what we do. We saw it, at Grace Emanuel. We were the standard bearer for this country when that happened. Let's do it again. We can. We can come out here every night, but let's do it right.
Well, thank you so much. Again, Leslie Lyles, former News 2 anchor. I appreciate you giving us your thoughts about what you've seen here tonight. It has been incredible to see something like this here in the Low Country. I mean, you've been here for many, many years as well. Have you ever experienced anything like this?
No, I remember one time seeing a riot about to happen at the Port Authority, but nothing quite like this. But what we have to remember is these things happen, and it's happened before, and progress is made. So we don't need to dwell on it. We need to listen to what people are saying, work together, and cover it nicely and try to be safe. We're going through a hard time now. Businesses are going through a hard time. So protest, great. Let's just don't let anybody get hurt. That's what I think. If we have to dim the lights out of fear, not good. But I understand what people are trying to do. I do. And so that's why I try to cover it fairly and be nonpartisan and just work together. That's the goal.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking a moment to talk to us. And And as you see here, the law enforcement are still in place here at the corner of Cal. Pretty much kind of been a nucleus of where they have been pretty much throughout the day and trying to clear out the streets here. They did make their way down each of the individual streets a bit to make sure they were as clear as possible. And we don't see a lot of protesters. There are some protesters here right under the Francis Marion Hotel sign. You can see a few, but there aren't a whole lot of them here, definitely not in the numbers that we were seeing earlier. Live in downtown, back to you.
Thank you so much for that continued coverage. I mean, Brendan, it appears that in that area, there's definitely a lot less rioters than we were seeing earlier.
Yeah, things have definitely quieted down. That is a good thing. We certainly enjoy seeing that. It was good to see Leslie getting her firsthand knowledge of what is going on down there, and we certainly appreciate her insight into that. We certainly appreciate Raymond Owens doing the coverage for us live down there as well. We hope things are quieting down. As we know, it is midnight right now. This curfew is in effect until 7 a.m. We hope people are listening and continue to listen to this curfew, and we hope that law enforcement can continue to do their job kind of quelling what has happened down there.
Yeah, Brendan, and all day we've seen, I mean, it is multiple agencies kind of banding together in downtown Charleston trying to regain control of what has happened. Sure. And that curfew you mentioned, Brendan, I mean, it is for all of Charleston County, so if you're at home listening, that applies to anyone in Charleston County, not just the city of Charleston. That is in effect until 7 a.m. So I think, are going to go back to Raymond Owens. I think he's got something. Riley Benson?
I think we're going to Riley Benson.
Let's
is
toss
that right,
to him.
Bill? Yeah.
They're in downtown Charleston. Riley?
Taylor and Brendan, I'm on the corner of Calhoun and King Street, and you can see still the heavy presence of law enforcement, police officers. We have, my mic's on. Can you hear? Can you guys hear me now? All right, we're on the corner of Calhoun and King, and as you can see, this is still a heavy presence of law enforcement. We see the SWAT still standing here. Guys, this line hasn't moved since, what, maybe 10 o'clock? I mean, this line has been really set up here on the corner of King and Calhoun now for quite some time. Really, we aren't seeing too many people down here. There's a small group of people down here in front of me. As I look down King Street, there are a few people still coming, but really this area has cleared out for the most part. We have, like Raymond's told you, we've seen some different things. We haven't seen tear gas for a while, but this group of law enforcement has been set up here on the corner for quite some time. Again, it's probably been about an hour, and it looks like they're getting ready to mobilize and maybe move down Calhoun Street. There is a heavy presence of law enforcement down in the distance on Calhoun. They're still instructing people, the few people that are still left down in this particular area, this Calhoun and King Street, to continue to move down Calhoun away from Marion Square. But guys, just a really, really unreal scene. Very sad to see this right now, Brendan and Taylor.
Okay, this is just some of the damage that we've seen. We've seen a lot of this on King Street. This is Lower King Street right there, the Apple Store, which we all know and love. It's a big glass facade, glass doors, glass windows out front. Those windows were broken a few hours ago. Some of the damage that we have been sent, some of the video that we have seen, and this spans a large portion of King Street from Lower King all the way to Upper King. The majority of our coverage, obviously, for the safety of our reporters, both Riley Benson and Raymond Owens and Hannah Powers, who is down there dinner with her parents, is the safety of them is of utmost importance to us. So we are staying with law enforcement in that area of King and Calhoun, but we know there is some damage, vast damage on King Street. We want to take some video. Taylor, back with me now, that we saw the protesters moved out of King Street, moved out of Marion Square, and they headed towards the Ravenel Bridge on I-26, Taylor.
Brendan, this is a look from earlier. So the protesters that originally gathered at 2 o'clock on King Street to have a peaceful protest, this is when things began to take a turn. This was in between 6 and 7 o'clock tonight. Those protesters began to make their way over the Ravenel Bridge, but not in the pedestrian lane. They were attempting to cross through where cars drive and through the lanes of traffic on I believe the eastbound side of 26 heading into Mount Pleasant. Those protesters walked across the bridge. You're taking a look right now from earlier of the bridge closed off. Now, when this happened, law enforcement agencies on the Mount Pleasant side as well as the city of Charleston side had to make their way to the bridge and close off the bridge because of people trying to cross it. There's a look real quick of when the bridge opened back up, but it was closed for for a while in between 6 and 7 o'clock this evening as those protesters physically began to make their way across the bridge. This is when I noticed things began to take a turn from the peaceful gathering that was earlier. You're now taking another live look at the Marion Square area in downtown Charleston. I believe this is King and Calhoun, is from what I can tell. You're seeing a heavy police presence there still. I mean, this police presence has been there all evening as law enforcement has tried to kind of monitor conditions out there, because it took a pretty chaotic turn as rioters began to throw bricks into buildings, into windows. We've heard reports of fires that have been started in businesses. So this is why there is such a heavy police presence. This is why there is a county-wide curfew currently in effect. So that's what we're taking a live look at, Brendan.
Yeah, we sure are. And, you know, we have talked a lot about different stores and storefronts that have been damaged. There's certainly many small business owners here in the area, too, that have seen damage to their storefronts and to their property. West Elm Furniture, Proof, halls, different areas like that, restaurants and stores. And many of the stores probably weren't open at the time of this damage. We know the restaurants and bars have slowly reopened. Here we are just slowly reopening after this COVID-19 pandemic and people starting to enjoy time out. This happened and a lot of people were scared. A lot of people couldn't leave the restaurant. As we are told, Taylor, some people have not been able to leave restaurants yet. We know there's a curfew in place. It started at 11 o'clock, so a lot of those people are gone now, but some who are still in the restaurant, we hope they are safe. We hope they stay safe as we continue to see this video as we look live down at the corner of Marion Square, King and Calhoun, of the law enforcement presence right here in the Holy City, downtown Charleston.
And Braden, you mentioned it. I mean, a lot of people were dining at restaurants on King Street. I mean, just thinking it was an ordinary Saturday night, what people would be doing. I mean, the city finally reopening after all we've dealt with through the COVID-19 pandemic, of course. So people were out to eat with their families. Of course, social distancing in place at these restaurants, but restaurants were pretty crowded from what I've heard. Our very own News 2's Hannah Powers was out to dinner with her family on her night off when she was in a restaurant on King Street, the restaurant The Ordinary, and that was when a brick was thrown into the dining room from outside from a rioter on the street. So we've heard a lot of incidents of people just going about their night, not expecting this kind of chaos to really take place here like it has. I mean, I think this is a shock for a lot of people watching at home. I know we've seen incidents like this nationwide, but you certainly never hope it will happen close to home. So.
Mm-hmm. And this frustration has been building for quite some time, which is understandable given what happened in Minneapolis a few days ago. So we understand the frustration. We hoped people would be vocal about it in different ways, but this is what it is right now, and we have to accept that, and we have to hope for the best. And when we wake up tomorrow morning and assess what has happened, we just hope that we can move on and move forward. It's certainly a level of frustration in this country right now that I've never seen before, and a lot of people haven't seen before. And it's tough to understand in some regards, but we know it's there, and we're trying to learn from it, quite frankly.
Of course, and I think that is exactly why several hundred people gathered at 2 o'clock in downtown Charleston earlier today, was to say that they stand in solidarity with justice being served in the incident, the tragic incident that took place in Minneapolis on Monday, where an unarmed African-American man, George Floyd, died in the hands of police custody. And so, of course, the City of Charleston mayor, as well as City of Charleston police chief, say they do stand in solidarity with those peaceful protesters that were in downtown Charleston earlier. I mean, I saw law enforcement there earlier around 2 o'clock, you know, letting protesters really make way through the streets, letting them march, letting them voice their opinions, letting them voice their anger and frustration over what happened in our nation in Minneapolis. But of course, when it took this turn to riots and vandalism and started to get violent, that is when law enforcement really had to start trying to disperse the crowd.
We continue to bring this coverage to you just after midnight on a Saturday to Sunday morning now, and this curfew is in place until 7 a.m. as we continue to cover it. Things right now appear quiet, at least in this area right now. King and Calhoun, right there at Marion Square. This is where the protesters started this afternoon around 2 o'clock, and it is continued into the night and is continuing in other areas as well as we continue to get more video and more messages throughout through our social media and through our emails and through different places such as that. And we are seeing the law enforcement there. We're seeing SWAT there. Raymond Owens, who's been affected by the tear gas and pepper spray, has been down there talking to people and covering this event for us. Level of frustration, like I said, I know I just said that, but it's one we haven't seen before. A lot of people are so upset out there right now, and justifiably so. And so we continue to cover this event for you that has happened not only here in downtown Charleston, but in cities across this country, Taylor.
And Brendan, I mean, I think a lot of us are going to wake up, I feel, with questions tomorrow. I mean, questions on where these rioters were even from. I mean, I know that's something that Police Chief Luther Reynolds hinted at and mentioned, that this group of rioters that really started gathering in downtown Charleston, and when night fell, he believes it's a group of 50 to 100 rioters that caused a lot of damage, and he's questioning if they're even from the Low Country. So I think that's one of the questions a lot of us want answered tomorrow, of course, as we continue to look at what's going on here in downtown Charleston. You're taking a live look still at the Marion Square area. I see SWAT. I see so many different law enforcement agencies there just kind of guarding that area where a lot of the havoc was taking place just earlier.
Yeah, and as you were saying there, 50 to 100 people, and there is a saying there, a few bad apples spoil a bunch, and that could very well be the case, and we probably know that is the case right there, and that's the situation we're in right now. We're going to talk to Riley Benson and Raymond Owens here in a couple of minutes. I know we have some pictures too that we're going to look at from other areas of downtown Charleston, as some of the things that we've seen, some of the damage, some of the video that has been sent into us, some of the eyewitness accounts of what has happened. And what we are hearing right now is that we will go back to News 2's Riley Benson in just a minute. I know we've seen this video before of the Apple Store in downtown Charleston. We have seen this video a couple of times, but it is indicative of what we are seeing in that area of downtown Charleston, King Street and Upper King and Lower King, damage to so many storefronts. Taylor?
Yeah, and I'm just hearing from our producer right now. A lot of this is on the fly. I'm hearing that there is someone on the phone that we need to talk with. That is what we are going to hear in a moment. You're still taking a look, though, at the Apple Store from earlier. It just shows how much devastation has happened here on the streets of the city that we know and love, the Holy City. I mean, it's a lot of chaos that ensued later on tonight. So we have someone standing by on the phone.
We have Representative J.A. Moore from Berkeley County. Representative Moore, can you hear us right now?
Yes, I can.
Thank you for joining us at this late hour. I certainly appreciate that. You've seen the video, you've seen the coverage, you've seen what's going on. Can we get your reaction to this right now?
I mean, my initial reaction is I understand the pain that people are feeling throughout the country. I'm feeling similar pain. We're coming up on 5 years since the murder of my sister and 8 other parishioners at the Mother Emanuel AME Church, and I understand firsthand how devastating loss can be, and how nationally the effects of incidents of violence can ignite a nation. But it's troubling to see stores being vandalized and seeing the looting that's going on right now in a city that I love. And honestly, we have to listen closely and understand that people are hurting. Mm-hmm. People are devastated, and a lot of times people don't know exactly how to take action and what is the right course of action. However, what I fundamentally believe is that this is a bigger issue, right? People need answers. People want to feel that their government is working correctly for them. They want to feel that people can hear them and see them and understand their pain. But I know for a fact that vandalizing and looting and destruction of property won't fix anything. The systemic issues that our communities and marginalized communities have faced for generations won't be solved by the destruction that we see tonight. It's a reactionary motive. You know, just a few days ago, I put out an op-ed and I spoke about what needs to happen, in my opinion. You know, we need to fundamentally change how we police. We need to fundamentally change how we legislate. We need to fundamentally change how we deal with the economic and social issues that too many times marginalized communities have faced. But I'm heartbroken. The city that I love in complete chaos. But it's not just here in Charleston. It's in Columbia. It's all over this country. But what we must do is we must be resolved as leaders in this community and let people know that we hear them and we see them and we understand that they're pain, because I feel the same pain. You know, my sister, dear friends of mine, were murdered by the hands of white supremacists. And I understand how hurt and people just want something to change. And then I can understand just the raw emotions going on now. But I know that Charleston and South Carolina in this country, we deserve and we must do more and do better in this moment. But it's just devastating. It is completely devastating.
Talking with Representative
we
Moore.
must come together.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you just said right there, Representative Moore from Berkeley County. We certainly appreciate you joining us. You brought up a good point just minutes ago, the frustration felt by so many people, not just here, but really everywhere. And you brought up a good point. They really might not know how to have their voice heard and may not know how to react. And this is how they think they need to when they don't know exactly how to have their voice heard.
That's correct. I mean, I think you've illustrated what I'm saying perfectly. You articulated it, and I want folks to know that I hear you, I see you, and I will continue to fight like heck to make sure that these injustices that happen in all of my life. And before I got here, my dad was heavily involved in the civil rights movement. He started his activism when he was 15 years old. He was a Mount Point Marine, which was the first group of African Americans to join the Marine Corps. And for 50 years, he fought for the rights of people. And 3 years later, after his death, his daughter was murdered. So I understand. But I want people to know that there's people like me, there's people like Senator Marlon Kempson and Representative Marvin Pendarvis, and so many other people who really are listening and understand the pain firsthand. But I'm just calling on everyone that's out there right now that feel lost and feel like their voices aren't being heard to know that I hear you. I really do. I hear you. I feel your pain because I am your pain. It's we are a representative government. That's what we have, and change must happen. We all know that. We no longer can afford to be silent and disengaged citizens. The task is greater than that. Now we have to be the resounding trumpeters for the muted voices, and I think what we're seeing tonight throughout the country is muted voices wanting to be heard, and this crying out for change to happen in this moment.
We were both part of that tragic event that happened 5 years ago. You talked about it a second ago, Representative Moore, the tragic shooting at Emanuel ME, Mother Emanuel, such a tragic shooting right there. But we really didn't see then what we saw now, 5 years later. Why do you think that is? What's the biggest difference?
No, I think this is a compound effect of what happened 5 years ago with the tragedy, and a lot of people feel that it's more and more things are happening and no real solutions are coming from it, and people feel helpless. People feel desperate. People want to make sure that their voices are heard now. And I understand that. And what we saw in the tragedy of Emanuel is the narrative of forgiveness. And forgiveness is important, but action must happen. My mom always tell me progress doesn't come because you wish for it. Progress comes because you work for it. And I think people feel that the work has not been done. I think that's the big thing. It's just compound. and as it also, to be honest with you, just people just feel like this injustice that's been happening in this country from the beginning of this country. It's people just feel like there's no justice.
And Representative, so much wisdom. I truly understand how so many of these people are feeling, so much pent-up frustration. I mean, what I want to ask now is, when we wake up tomorrow, when Charlestonians wake up tomorrow and kind of see what happened here tonight, I mean, where do we go from here in the next few days? What do we do? What is the next few steps we can take in the days following this to really come together?
Well, I think it's important for us to calm emotions in this moment, but it's bigger than that, right? We really have to fundamentally change the way in which, as elected officials and leaders in this community, how we handle challenges, because we all know the situation that happened in North Charleston with a young African American a male who was the grandson of a former city council member. How that all of that stuff is built in, and so we have to do a better job as the leaders in this community of listening to our constituents and coming up with real solutions. And it can't be just lip service. It can't just be our speech. It can't be an interview like I'm doing right now. It has to be substantive actions. It got to be legislative. It has to be in the courtrooms. It has to be representation in law enforcement. It has to be representation in legislators. There has to be representation in economic opportunities. There's so many education. It's so many issues that people feel like it's frustration going on now. But I'm telling you now that looting, criminal activity, of violence, all of these things will not solve the systemic issues that we're facing. It's reactionary, and I understand people's pain right now. I really do. I mean, like the burden of this community right now is weighing on me so heavily, and I understand it. I feel it constantly. I'm always, I'll never get over the tragedy of my personal experience in my family. And so I understand that. I understand the collective frustration and helplessness. But we have to do more. And, we as elected officials, we must come together and not rubber stamp things. Yes, the symbol of that flag coming down was, from a symbolism standpoint, was important, but from a substantive standpoint, did not go further enough. And we have to address those issues. And I'm going to be fighting like heck to make sure that happens.
Thank you so much, Representative, for calling in with us tonight.
Yes, Representative Moore, very good insight. We certainly appreciate your time. We know it's late, and we appreciate your passion on finding answers to these problems. Yes. Representative Moore from Berkeley County, thank you very much.
Now, earlier we were taking a live look. I'm hoping we can get it back up of Marion Square. That was what you were just seeing on your on the screen here, Marion Square. It appears that police are moving. I don't even know where we are on King Street, Brendan, but it appears that police are moving away from Marion Square and physically walking up King Street. You're taking a look at some of the damage our reporters are seeing as they make their way up King.
Yeah, right there. That's right by the Francis Marion Hotel right there on King Street as we go up there. You can see across the street and up a little bit is Hotel Bennett. There you see Riley Benson right there. Riley, we're going to go to you. And police officers, law enforcement, they are on the move right now, buddy.
So we're making our way up King. So Hotel Bennett's off to our right. If you're looking, obviously this law enforcement that had been stationed at Calhoun and King are making their way down King. It's definitely still a very active scene, as you guys just heard. I'm not sure what that was. But yeah, police are making their way up King Street. We did hear one thing. We were out here on the corner just a short time ago while we were on the phone with the representative. A gentleman from Hotel Bennett came running up to this line of law enforcement on the corner. He made some sort of a plea to the law enforcement for help. We don't want to say, whether we don't have anything confirmed. He had just pleaded for help. Sounded like maybe possibly somebody was injured at Hotel Bennett. He had pleaded for help, and I don't know that he got that help, but certainly very scary as we continue to make our way up King Street. We're not seeing a whole lot of people out here, and I guess if you can see over at Hotel Bennett when we get past this vehicle, there are some people kind of congregated outside the hotel watching us advance up King Street. Still a very active scene. There is still a helicopter flying overhead, and if you were watching News 2's Raymond Owens, he continued down Calhoun Street with that line of law enforcement. So they are starting to branch out from the Marion Square area. A few people did remain in that centered position where we had spent so much time, and you can see there's a fire truck now coming our way. We're going to go ahead and pause right here just so we kind of give them some space. But yeah, it's still an active scene. There are actually barricades. It's very hard to see. There are barricades across King Street right here as the fire truck is turning. I don't know if you guys can see them or not, but they have barricaded King Street as this line of law enforcement is kind of now stopped and positioned right outside Hotel Bennett. Again, a location that did get hit fairly hard earlier in the evening. But Brendan and Taylor, very active scene here on King Street as we are now moving away from Marion Square.
Right, News 2's Riley Benson is continuing our team coverage up there, Riley. And as you said, you're not seeing a lot of people up there now. That's good news. We certainly we hope that continues, as there is a curfew in place in Charleston County that has been in effect since 11 o'clock and will be in effect until 7 in the morning as we continue to take a live look. Now, we saw about an hour ago, Taylor, that this line of law enforcement was up there before. And then they moved back down to King and Calhoun. But they moved up there. They shot a couple canisters of tear gas, what appeared to be tear gas, and then they moved back to their previous location. Now they're moving up once again.
That's exactly right, Brendan. And it appears what they're doing is just kind of moving where the rioters are. Of course, you know, since we're not seeing a heavy presence of rioters still in this area, it makes you wonder what other areas of downtown they're in, and that is why we have crews on scene just monitoring everything. I believe News 2's Raymond Owens is standing by. He's still in downtown Charleston. He's been bringing us coverage throughout the night. Raymond, where are you, and what are you seeing down there?
Right now, we've actually, this is Berkeley and Charleston County Sheriff's deputies. They have pushed kind of down Calhoun Street to St. Philip's, and we made that right on St. Philip's Street. And then now we've pushed down St. Philip's Street to, I believe we're here at Vanderhorst, I believe. Yeah, that's where we're at right this minute. Matter of fact, the Charleston Water Service is right across the street, if you know where that business is, or you know, where their office is. We've got the SWAT truck here, and Berkeley County Chief Deputy is out here as well. He was telling me they're basically just going street by street and kind of sweeping this area. And if you look where Riley was over on King Street, we're kind of going down a parallel to where they are, perhaps. There's not a lot of protesters out here in this area as we've made our way through here. Not a whole lot of them. I can see even down the street they're talking to a couple of people, and a number of the deputies are coming back over here. But basically, like I said, we're just kind of following them along as they kind of sweep through the area to take care of any protesters, trying to make sure people are off the streets, because it is fully 100% under curfew here in downtown Charleston. Live in downtown Charleston, I'm Raymond Owens. Back to you.
Okay, News 2's Raymond Owens. We appreciate that very much for his report as we continue our team coverage. Raymond Owens is down there along with Riley Benson giving us this coverage. Our eyes down there in Charleston. You see people right there walking, able to walk right there past law enforcement. Probably a pretty tough situation for law enforcement there when it comes to enforcing this curfew.
Of course, it's almost like they have
to do. Right, I'm sure they have protocols in place that I'm not quite familiar with, but you can see right there some people are around. Heck, you got people at Hotel Bennett sitting there who are staying there, who are outside looking at what's going on right there. Our best bet is for everyone, though, is to go inside and just be safe and don't try to be a part of what's going on right now.
Of course, and you're taking a live look at King Street outside of Hotel Bennett. You're looking at law enforcement really lined up across that King Street there outside of Hotel Bennett. We're told multiple agencies are present downtown working together to kind of just to try and disperse these rioters. And what Raymond said they were doing is pretty strategic. They are slowly making their way up King Street, looking down all the streets, demanding people to leave at this point, and they have been using tear gas as was necessary. It looks like they're on the move, Brendan.
It certainly does look like they're on the move right now. They're heading up there, the next block up, as you see Virginia. Virginia's on King Street right there as they continue to move up the area, and the barricades are still out there as well. We are following there. You see Riley Benson there, and our cameraman continues to follow law enforcement up in that area as we're seeing broken windows, obviously.
Shattered glass everywhere.
Shattered glass, yeah, that's going to be the story of the night right there, as we saw that people just casually picking up rocks and bricks from the sidewalk and throwing them through the windows as they walked by. So we've seen a lot of that. We're still going to see a lot more. This really gives us an idea. We haven't been this far up during our coverage here this late at night. This is about where we stopped and headed back to King and Calhoun, where all law enforcement and SWAT and Berkeley and Charleston County deputies were. But now they are making a move. They are going up here in Upper King Street, and we're really going to be able to get a look exactly at some of the damage possibly and what we've heard and the pictures we have seen to get a better visualization of exactly what happened in this area.
Of course, and Brendan, the reason our crews were really stationed at Marion Square was simply for safety. I mean, that's where law enforcement was, and there was a lot of tear gas in the area. So our number one priority was keeping our crews on the scene safe there in downtown Charleston. But now that police are advancing towards Upper King, our crews are as well. And I mean, we are making our way towards the area where we heard a lot of reports of damage. I mean, we know that Hannah Powers was dining in the Ordinary, which is a restaurant up this direction, that had a brick thrown through the window. We know confirmed that West Elm, is a furniture store, is up in this direction, and a fire broke out there caused by some of those rioters. So we are advancing more that direction with our crews and seeing just more of that devastation. It's very hard to see here in Charleston.
Heading up that way to John Street, you see right around the corner Rue de Jean and many different restaurants that are familiar to so many people here. And as you look up into the distance, we did see smoke. Now that could be a canister that was fired from law enforcement up there to disperse a crowd, possibly a fire. We've had two different reports of two separate fires. We saw the fire truck leaving that area, which would, without lights on, certainly be good news, hopefully, that if there was a fire that is now out as that fire truck was leaving the scene. But as you look up past the police there, you saw some smoke earlier. I'm thinking it was probably a canister of possibly tear gas to disperse a crowd up there as law enforcement has come to a halt. They walked about, it's about 2 blocks up from Calhoun Street right there as they continue to look up Upper King Street now. Lights are still on there, but you can see smoke in the distance. Could be gas, could be smoke. We'll try and clarify that with our reporters who are on the scene.
Absolutely. And Brendan, I mean, it is already 12:30. That curfew, countywide curfew, been in effect for 90 minutes now.
Sure.
So even though that curfew is in effect, obviously the rioters have not completely dispersed from the Holy City, which is why law enforcement is still making their way through the streets, doing a sweep, trying to get everyone to leave and trying to create a safer atmosphere there right now. I mean, we know that people are staying in hotels here in the downtown area. We know that people were dining in restaurants earlier this evening. So I think this was just definitely a very scary scene in downtown Charleston. Our reporters, as you can see, are walking, advancing with police up Upper King. We are going to try to check in now with Riley Benson. He's walking, but he is standing by live to kind of describe what's going on. Riley, if you're hearing me, give us a little update of what you're seeing, Riley.
All right, we'll wait to hear from Riley right now, but we are seeing, Riley is right there in the vicinity of our photographer right there, as we are seeing a lot of the damage.
Can you, we can hear me now, guys?
Yeah, Riley, we can hear you right now. What we are seeing is a lot of a mess and probably a lot of broken glass.
Yeah, there is a ton of broken glass, guys. This is probably one of the worst hit areas that we're seeing as we move up King Street, Upper King Street, windows shattered pretty much everywhere. This is proof. So guys, this is proof. Glass is everywhere, all over the sidewalks, the streets. A lot of the stores here in this area vandalized very, very badly. I do know the owner of John King Bar and Grill, Lonnie Knight. He had posted and let us know that they had also had windows broken in there as well. As we continue to walk and follow this line of law enforcement police officers up King Street, and again, I mean, broken glass everywhere on King Street, on the sidewalks, and there's been more tear gas fired now. As we can feel it in your eyes, you can smell it, taste it. Very, you know, there's not many people out here There are a few that are being told to disperse, to leave the area, to go home. They are warning them that if they do not do that, they will be arresting them. They can use force if people are not following the rules, not dispersing. Obviously, that curfew is in place. This is 2 Cumberland here on King Street. You hear the alarm is still going off. You can see just a disaster. Windows broken everywhere. There's a mannequin laying out here on front glass pretty much everywhere, and I'm trying to avoid as much glass as possible. Again, this line of law enforcement has stopped their march. We're trying to give you a perspective. If you know where 2 Cumberland's at, we're here on King Street, and the law enforcement, these vehicles just down King Street behind us as this line has continued to push up. Guys, it's a scary scene, but you know, a lot of the people aren't out here. This line of law enforcement is just kind of looks like they're strategically sweeping King Street, trying to clear out as many people as possible, make sure there's nobody still out here, and try to keep things obviously calm down, trying to keep things under control, get people to go home right now.
Law enforcement? Or are they just kind of making their way up King? Are anyone vocalizing their displeasure? Or is there anyone talking to law enforcement? Or you said it's quieter?
It definitely is quieter, except for obviously there's a few alarms that are going off on King Street. But no, they're warning people. They're telling them, you know, go home, disperse. If you do not do so, they will arrest you. They have the right to arrest you. But they're stopping kind of each block. So we stopped about John King, Virginia's, that area, moved up to now this intersection. There are some cars in the distance, so there's still people on King Street. There's still people downtown Charleston. There's plenty of cars around. This line is all the way across from sidewalk to sidewalk, keeping people, and it just really, Brendan, it really looks like they're sweeping and trying to push everyone out of this area, and it's just a mess. I mean, you can see this gentleman's trying to clean up as much as possible as that alarm finally sounded off, and now we're going to continue to move up King Street here, Brendan.
Is he a part of that business where you can talk to him? Did he witness anything?
Sir,
have you talked to any witnesses?
Part of this business? Or?
441 King, yeah.
Would you do you want to talk to us on live TV?
Yeah.
Kind of just describe this evening, this story.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like this. You know, I've been on the street 13 years, and it's just devastating to see this happen. It's supposed to be a peaceful protest, and then the hooligans they whipped into a frenzy. The police took their time to respond. No fault on them. The mayor's pretty weak, so, you know, it all comes from the top. I mean, there was 4 hours of looting going on King Street, and every single window got smashed. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Were you inside the building when the looting began, when they broke in? Can you describe that at all for us?
I actually was watching my security cameras, and I saw them start to break the windows, so I drove down here from my house, and I'm boarding up after people had already looted, and people are like, you hit that yet? You hit that yet? I'm like, that's actually mine. They're like, oh, I'm kidding. I'm at a loss for words right now.
What would you say to Charlestonians who are at home watching this unravel tonight? I mean, what would you tell the people who are watching this?
2020 sucks. I mean, what's next? This is Charleston, where we all come together during diversity times, and I mean, this is not Charleston. A lot of people were coming down from Ladson and Goose Creek when they heard you could loot. They didn't block the intersection. They let everybody come down. You guys got to keep moving.
All right, well, appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Guys, there you have it. You heard from a gentleman here with a store on King Street. And we're going to continue to march up King Street here, Brendan and Taylor.
I mean, you were just hearing from a store owner, someone who worked at a store on King Street. He was going to assess the damage. Of course, a lot of the stores on King Street have had a lot of damage from those riots that ensued tonight. I think a lot of hurt people out there tonight. What started as a peaceful protest at 2 o'clock, supported by law enforcement officers, supported by the City of Charleston Mayor John Tecklenburg, supported by Police Chief Luther Reynolds. What started as a peaceful protest with several hundred people in downtown Charleston, very upset, calling for justice justice in the death of George Floyd, who was an unarmed African-American man who died at the hands of law enforcement officers on Monday in Minneapolis. What was happening is those protesters, several hundred of them, were marching in solidarity up King Street around 2 o'clock this afternoon. But of course, as you're seeing right now, things definitely took a turn later into the evening. Now, I do want to clarify that Police Chief Luther Reynolds said himself that he believes this is a separate group of about 50 to 100 that continued to march down the streets of downtown Charleston after that original peaceful protest ended. And he agreed that people have a right to be upset and a right to be angry. Mayor Don Tecklenburg acknowledging that today was the scariest day in Charleston. This is definitely a scene we are not used to seeing here in our holy city. So it's definitely very upsetting for a lot of you watching at home, and of course for us as well. You're continuing to take a live look at King Street. Police, law enforcement officers were gathered at Marion Square for most of the night. We were talking about all of the damage on Upper King, but this is the first we're really getting a live look at what happened on Upper King. Now that it's safe for our crews to really advance that direction with law enforcement, we're getting a look at all the damage to these businesses, Brendan.
We sure, and we've talked so much, Taylor, about just the windows being broken, but the gentleman who just was kind enough to do an interview with us talked about the looting that had been going on for hours, and the mayhem, for lack of a better word, that had been going on for hours in that area. A very frustrated person there, as I'm sure a lot of people are frustrated in that area, as well as what's transpired in the last couple of hours here in downtown Charleston.
And so what you're seeing is a strategic plan by law enforcement officers. What we're told by reporters on the scene is that they are now walking in this line. They're advancing Upper King, where a lot of the rioters had relocated. So the riots began in Marion Square. A lot of the rioters relocated towards Upper King because there was such a heavy police presence at Marion Square. So what's happening now is law enforcement officers, we're told, are lining the streets, advancing up King Street, up to Upper King, street by street, making sure that these rioters are gone and making sure conditions are once again safe. Take a look at this. This is a building, oh goodness, is this Ann Street or John Street? This is off of King Street.
Yeah,
you can just
right
see
up.
Some vandalism there, and this is what we're seeing all over.
Yeah, if I can tell, I think that's the building that's right across the street from Basil, the restaurant there, up there, historic. Oh gosh, the name escapes me. I wish it didn't, but it does right now, and that's just some of the damage and the vandalism that we will see, and that we are starting to see a lot more of as law enforcement has made their way up quickly up King Street right now. They were just 15 minutes ago down at the corner of King and Calhoun, and now they are up here in this area as well. So they're moving quickly up here to, as Riley told us, try to disperse any people remaining in the area, as this curfew has been in effect for the last 98 minutes.
That's right. And I mean, they've been using different methods as they kind of advance up the streets. I know one thing we saw earlier is they made multiple announcements to the demonstrators and rioters in Marion Square saying, hey, you need to leave the area or we are going to gas the area. And that is exactly what happened. I mean, our reporters have been doing such a great job, Raymond and Riley, as they're downtown dealing with the tear gas themselves.
Yeah.
And look, we're moving again, and this is very strategic. The law enforcement officers advancing another street further, Brendan, to just kind of doing a sweep of the whole area, looking down those side streets.
Yeah, and that building I was talking about, that yellow one with the vandalism, the graffiti on it, the William Aiken House, that finally came to my mind there. Certainly a historic house there. Hate to see anything happen to that, but fortunately we did see that, and we are seeing a lot more damage as we continue to walk with law enforcement, and you can see other people there along the sidewalk as well. As we know, this curfew is in place, but they are walking behind law enforcement, maybe just getting out of a building there where they were staying and sheltered for the last couple of hours. But
And I mean, I just want to recap some of the things we've seen so far tonight, Brendan. You're about to see some videos here on your screen here momentarily, but we've just seen a lot of different incidents. You're taking a look, we've shown this to you a few times, but you're taking another look at the Apple Store on King Street. This is on the other end of King Street from that live look we just gave you, but what happened is what's happened all through downtown Charleston, King Street area, today is that a brick or some object was thrown through the window of the Apple Store and the glass just completely shattered. I mean, we have reached out for reports, of course, to see if what was taken from the store, but of course our law enforcement are all hands on deck right now, so we're waiting to hear confirmation of exactly what was looted from the store, if anything was looted from the store. But what is obvious is just that broken glass, that damage to the Apple store there on King Street. And we've seen other areas hit as well, Brendan.
Yeah, and minute by minute we are learning more, and this was earlier this afternoon, obviously, as protesters left Marion Square, made their way along 526 this way. You can see East Bay Street. The bridge was closed, the Ravenel Bridge, as protesters were making their way up to the bridge. 26, there you see from the South Carolina Department of Transportation cameras there. Traffic had to be stopped, be rerouted. I know several people that were trying to go over the Ravenel Bridge tonight at about that time and were not able to, as protesters were making their way up there. They were turned around in several places and made their way back downtown, many of them to where we're seeing the video now that we've seen live for the last couple of hours in Upper King Street.
And Brendan, we're still working to learn if any incidents are happening in any other area of Charleston County. The reason I say that is we have, as we're sitting here, we have gotten tips that there could possibly be rioters moving to other parts of the Low Country. We're waiting to confirm that. I don't want to alarm anyone. We're waiting to see if that's actually the truth and if that's actually happening. But our focus, of course, has been on downtown Charleston this evening, has been on the King Street, Marion Square area, because that's where we've seen a heavy presence of a lot of that destruction and damage that police are trying to gain control of. As we learn about other areas, we will update you, and that is why there is a curfew for all of Charleston County. I mean, Charleston County issued that county-wide curfew, not just for City of Charleston, not just for downtown, but for all of Charleston County, and it started at 11 o'clock and it's going to last until 7 a.m.
It sure is. Police Chief Luther Reynolds called what was happening tonight the work of domestic terrorists and not protesters. We were talking about it earlier. Maybe possibly a couple bad apples spoiled a bunch. A couple of people doing this here, and we hate to see it. But we did talk to Representative Moore from Berkeley County. Very good interview, a lot of good insight into exactly the frustration that people are feeling right now, the helplessness felt by so many, maybe not knowing how to be heard, and maybe some feeling that this is the way that they can finally enact change and be heard by doing this. Is just is what Representative Moore was telling us. He said there's so much injustice in this country and so much frustration right now that people are starting to lash out, and especially what happened to Mr. Floyd here just last week in Minneapolis.
Absolutely. Rightfully, a lot of people frustrated, a lot of people once again disappointed of that incident occurring in our nation, and so a lot of frustrated people. We saw so many people come together earlier today in Marion Square. I mean, hundreds of people. I was there. We had reporters on scene, just hundreds of peaceful protesters calling for justice in the death of George Floyd. And so that started out peaceful here in the Low Country. So we certainly hoped it would last that way, but we're taking a live look at kind of the remnants of rioting that happened on King Street earlier.
Yeah, law enforcement is moving at a pretty good pace right here over Sokol Furniture right there, the furniture store up there. But as we look back, as the law enforcement vehicles are behind that line of police and SWAT officers, we look ahead, and maybe Riley, if you can hear us right now, am I seeing smoke or am I seeing tear gas? Which one am I seeing right now, buddy?
Brendan, I really think it's a mix of both, honestly. Definitely tear gas, but I also smell some smoke in the air. And we did pass West Elm Furniture Store, which there have been reports that was on fire. We passed that just a bit ago, but we did want to keep moving with law enforcement. It's just very smoky in this area, and they have been shooting off tear gas as they have been advancing down King Street. Now they're going to go ahead and pause again. We're, again, like you said, across from Soko Furniture Store here on King Street. And if you take a look at this building on the left, it's just utter destruction. Mannequins outside laying on the street. You see glass everywhere. Inside looks like clothes have been taken off of racks and just thrown everywhere. I'm sure that they were inside. Looks like it had been looted inside as well as clothes. Everything really just kind of thrown everywhere inside. It's a mess, Brendan, to be quite honest.
And Riley, as you advance up King Street, I mean, about how many businesses are you seeing in this condition? I mean, is it relatively all of them? Is it at random? What is your guess from what you've seen?
I would say it's more often than not we're seeing businesses with windows smashed out. Most businesses that we've passed have their windows broken at this point. They're just, and a lot of them are in this state, like what you guys are seeing right now, where clothes and different things are scattered everywhere. We've seen several mannequins out in the street laying out front of stores. Most stores are looking like this, Taylor, as we continue our move up King Street.
All right, Riley Benson.
And there you go, another, it sounds like another tear gas.
Right, yeah,
it sounds like another tear gas. They're still shooting canisters down road.
Well, it's hard for us to see, Riley. You can probably see a lot better than we can right now. How many people are in front of that line of law enforcement? I mean, are there people that are backing up with law enforcement, with the police?
I mean, Brendan, there really aren't a whole lot of people out front of this line of law enforcement as they continue to sweep. We see a few people here and there trying to clean up their stores. I passed a few people that are boarding up their windows, but really there aren't, I mean, I don't really see protesters. You know, they're not like a line of protesters out in front of this. We see cars turning around on King Street. We see a couple people, but there isn't a big presence right now.
Yeah, we are seeing the aftermath of what happened in the last couple of hours right now, for sure, Taylor, as officers still dispersing tear gas there, trying to get the crowds to go home and get out of here, as this curfew has been in effect since 11 o'clock tonight, as Riley Benson has shown us. The photographer out there has shown us all these stores right now. We knew the glass would be broken. We had a fear there was looting, and I think what we're seeing the last couple of minutes here has confirmed that.
Absolutely. And I mean, we're just going to continue to bring you guys live coverage of what's taking place in downtown Charleston right now, and we're taking a look once again at those law enforcement officers that are banding together across the street, King Street, and they're just making their way towards Upper King, dispersing tear gas still, as Riley Benson mentioned. There's some smoke in the air, and Riley believes it's a mixture of smoke and tear gas. Just a lot of chaos still very active in downtown Charleston, and they're just strategically making their way through the streets, making sure that the rioters are gone, because this is the area, obviously, that was very hard hit.
Yeah, it's sad to see. We know this area so well. We all visit this area in downtown Charleston, and we know it well, and to see virtually every building, every storefront damaged, it's really heartbreaking to see, but law enforcement doing their best to make sure everything's calming down a little bit. Certainly a lot of frustration out there tonight in the Low Country, in the Holy City, and in cities across this nation right now. Is what we're seeing right now. We are seeing everywhere, and it's tough to watch. It's tough to look at, but it's the way it is right now in this world, and that's something we have to deal with. And here's law enforcement on the road again. The Athlete's Foot, that store right there, continuing to move up King now. They stopped for a little while on Upper King, but they are continuing their journey up. Don't know how far they are going to go. Obviously, you get up a little further, and we'll keep an eye on it here as we are watching the photographer continue to follow this line of law enforcement.
All right, and we're still taking a live look as our reporters make their way up King Street. This is actually video from earlier that we're looking at. So we were looking at a live video. Now we're looking at earlier video of West Elm. This is on King Street, of course, and this is a fire inside West Elm Furniture Store. We were able to get that confirmed. So our reporter has already moved past this store, so we can't give you a live look at it now, but the fire is out. This is a look from earlier West Elm Furniture Store.
And I've also seen some video after this original photo right here of the fire of the sprinkler systems going off inside West Elm. So there's a bunch of damage to that furniture store, as you can imagine, right there, as we are looking at another storefront.
This is Stars. This is Stars Rooftop and Grill, Brendan.
Okay.
And so I know it's interesting because on a Saturday night, a lot of people would be there, even pre-COVID. So I saw this picture earlier. This is Stars Rooftop Grill, I believe it's called. And this is, once again, another broken window at a storefront on King Street.
And these businesses were just starting to open up. They have been closed for months, a lot of them. We know we started with the outside dining, but inside dining as well. So we know that a lot more people were enjoying themselves, maybe going out during this pandemic, and a lot of people were out and saw this, as we are seeing this video once again of the Apple Store. A little further down King Street there, in the lower part there as well. And what we're doing is when we go to the live shot, is we're going up King Street, Taylor, and seeing just this right here, shattered glass in stores that have been what we now assume looted.
Yeah, and Brendan, I mean, this just goes to show that it is a lot of different areas on, a lot of different blocks on King Street that have experienced damage, because that Apple store was on Lower King, and where Riley was earlier in that live shot is Upper King, and we're seeing damage in all areas on King Street. So you are taking look at video from earlier. This was the 2 o'clock peaceful protest. This is how it started out here in the Holy City. A lot of people rightfully upset, rightfully angry over the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. So that earlier video you just saw was that peaceful protest. But of course, as night fell, as things, as it just got darker out, things started to take a bit of a turn. Taking a look at that peaceful protest earlier, I'm told several hundred people gathered there and just marched in solidarity with a lot of the movements across the nation, rightfully angry, rightfully upset, calling for change, demanding for justice. You're taking a look now at the bridge from earlier. This is when things began to take a shift. This was between 6 and 7 o'clock. It appears this video is a little bit frozen, but what that was is we were seeing the bridge had to be closed off, because that's when protesters began to physically walk across the bridge in the car lanes. And now we're back alive. You're taking a live look at the video. This is a very, very big contrast from that peaceful protest we showed you earlier.
Yep, right there. And just you just saw there a canister of tear gas fired again. We just saw one a couple of minutes ago. Riley Benson said there may be a mix of both smoke and gas in that area. Law enforcement still working their way up King Street right now. We did get a release from a statement from Mayor John Tecklenburg regarding what has happened and regarding this curfew right now, and I'll read it to you as you continue to look live at the happenings now on Upper King Street in downtown Charleston. Charleston Mayor John Tecklenburg released this statement. The murder of George Floyd has rightfully caused outrage here and across the country, and while we as Charlestonians strongly support all of the good men and women who are peacefully and lawfully protesting that terrible crime, we cannot and will not condone acts of violence and vandalism in our city. Tonight, our police will work to contain the relatively small number of bad actors who are doing this damage. And tomorrow morning, Charlestonians of every race and station will come together to reject all forms of violence and injustice, and to affirm once again that ours is a city united in peace. That statement from Mayor John Tecklenburg from the city of Charleston. He released that following statement about an hour ago.
Brendan, and I mean, what he said is key there. Tomorrow morning is when we come together, and it's hard to think about even now. I mean, we're heading into the morning hours, and it's hard to think about even waking up and seeing this. I mean, they're looking at damage right now live. I honestly can't tell you what building this is. I do know that our reporter is off of King Street right now still, and so that's what we're looking at, is just broken glass. We're still seeing the police barricade just moving their way up King, up the streets, making sure all the rioters are gone and assessing the damage. This is the first we're seeing this area, Brendan.
It sure is, and they're moving at a pretty good clip right now. They're up by the papers, a couple of blocks down there. That's the old Bank of America building right across the street, and the damage not more severe there. It is the same that as we walk up and down King Street, it is the same that we are seeing everywhere, unfortunately. But that's where we stand right here, a little before 1 o'clock in the morning. Certainly could be worse. It could be better. The curfew ending at 7 o'clock. And when that sun comes up, Taylor, like you were saying, then we can really assess the damage and move on. We hope this is an isolated night, an isolated incident, that this doesn't continue into more nights of protest. But if it does, we certainly understand. It's just the way we stand right now. And here's law enforcement once again making a move, going up Upper King Street.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of frustration, a lot of anger over what happened in Minneapolis. And you know, we talked to Representative J.A. Moore earlier, and he had a lot of insight onto what's just going on here. He acknowledged a lot of the frustration that these rioters are possibly feeling, or definitely feeling, and the way that they took action tonight was not the J.A. Moore was saying it. You know, it wasn't the adequate way to express those emotions, but it just goes to show that there is a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, a lot of people seeking justice. And so now this is what we're left with as law enforcement advance up King Street, assessing the damage that really started in Marion Square, was where a lot of the chaos was earlier, and those rioters just made their way up King Street. You know, Chief Reynolds from City of Charleston said that he believes when night fell that it was about 50 to 100 rioters that caused this damage. I mean, looking at it, it seems like so much more were involved in this because it just seems like so much damage. But he believes that it was about 50 to 100 rioters that caused this damage. And
that's all it takes, really, right,
yeah,
Taylor? I mean,
is.
that's all it takes right there. You have other people there peacefully protesting, trying to get change, trying to have their voice heard, and then you know, 50 to 100 people, like you said, could be more. Yeah, a few bad. Could be more, could be less, but we know it wasn't the majority of people who were acting this way and causing all this damage.
That's right. So we just continue to take a live look at the King Street area. I apologize for our camera's movement, but what's happening is our camera crew as well as our reporters are literally, obviously, walking right now with law enforcement. They're sticking close to law enforcement, Brendan, of course, for safety.
Oh, for sure, definitely. We've had Riley Benson up there, and he's with his photographer up there as he continues to walk all the way up King Street. The good question is where will they stop? The stores probably last about another 2 blocks as we get up towards Columbus Street in that area right there. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. We know Raymond Owens has been talking to frustrated retailers and small business owners up there, not just the big business owners, but also the mom and pop shops that are still alive and well on King Street that have been heavily damaged right there. Very frustrating for people who are just trying to get back on their feet after this COVID-19 pandemic and starting to reopen to have this happen. Very frustrated, as you can imagine, for them right there. So there's a lot of frustration on both sides, to be sure.
Of course. And I mean, Brendan, one thing we heard from one of our reporters, Hannah Powers, earlier, she was off duty. She was dining in a restaurant when a brick was thrown into the restaurant. So I think what we got to keep in mind is that so many people were just thinking they were having a nice night out to dinner when they looked out the window of their restaurant on King Street and saw a lot of this chaos happening. And I know that what Chief Reynolds said is that some innocent bystanders did have water bottles thrown at them and were kind of caught up in this chaos. And this is why Charleston County issued that curfew, because they wanted to protect everyone countywide.
Yep, and right now they are up there near the Dr. Martin Luther King Historic Memorial District up there. The U-Haul building is up there on the right. That's actually where we were stationed for many years as we broadcast the MLK Parade live. Past that is the Post and Courier and the areas there of Upper King Street right now. So the one thing we haven't really seen and we haven't really talked about, Taylor, is arrests. We really haven't seen many people being hauled off, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, in handcuffs or anything like that. I haven't seen many injuries. I'm sure they are out there. I'm sure there have been people arrested. But when we start to get those numbers in, we'll of course let you know. You know, a lot of the stories we've posted on our website as well, counton2.com. So if you'd like to see more on this coverage, you can go there. And any latest numbers we get, we will certainly post that to our website and to our social media pages as well, Taylor.
Yeah, Brendan. And so you're just continuing to take a live look at law enforcement advancing up King Street, making their way towards Upper King. And like we showed you earlier, with each street they move forward, we are seeing damage. I mean, we have not seen damage yet. So all the way from past Marion Square, where the Apple store is, all the way up to where law enforcement is now on Upper King. I mean, we've seen broken windows and we've just seen a lot of damage. And so we are just continuing to monitor those conditions with our live crews on scene right now. And earlier today, Mayor John Tecklenburg made a few statements, and Brendan read one earlier, but he did call this the scariest day in Charleston. And I mean, this definitely is alarming for so many of us, for all of us, to see our city this way, and just to see the way that it has turned out.
Yeah, and we are focused on King Street right now. That's where the biggest presence is right now when it comes to police and SWAT and deputies. But it's not the only area that's been affected. We are getting pictures in and emails in, and we certainly appreciate that. Our viewers helping us out in that regard. But 211 Rutledge, we just have a picture of that. Firefighters on the scene there. A building that was on fire, and the firefighters working to put that out right there. We certainly appreciate you sending that in. Hope you stay safe out there when sending those pictures in. Our heart goes out for you, and we hope you're safe right there. I'm sorry, I'm reading my phone right now. I'm getting emails right now. I
Brendan.
apologize for
Yeah,
it.
and what's happening now is we're just getting so much information into our newsroom, and that's what Brendan's kind of assessing now. He's looking at his phone, looking at all the reports we're getting in. You know, we cannot say that this is the only incident happening in Charleston, which is why it's important to stay indoors right now. That curfew is in place for a reason. Obviously, our focus is on downtown Charleston right now. This is where the main rioting took place. As soon as we get things confirmed, we will bring it to you on air, but we are hearing reports of other areas being affected.